Carolina, fantastic. Houston, Texas. Burtonsville, Maryland, fantastic. I love seeing when we get a nice group of people from all over the place. Fantastic, fantastic. So let's start talking about how to get your first cloud architect job. So before we begin, whenever you listen to someone speak, you really need to know, who are they? What's their background? What's their experience? Are they credible? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, and then from there, we'll be able to talk about, how to get your first cloud architect job. So I've been working in technology for over 25 years. And during this time, I've worked for Cisco for almost a decade. Riverstone Networks, who's now Nokia, they were also Alcatel-Lucent for a while. I worked for Comcast, which is the largest cable company inside of the United States. And I had a chance to work for MCI WorldCom. I was the lead architect on the team, and they're now Verizon. So I've had a chance to work for some really great companies. And I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have these opportunities. And I'm super, super grateful for it. Now, over these couple of decades, I focused on a few areas, because if you're going to build a career, you don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. You want to be focused on something. So I focused most of my time on network design. A lot of it on security and a lot of it on cloud computing, but predominantly the network side. That's where I tend to like my focus. But, there's all kinds of the world, and we should focus on all of them. And again, so you know who I am. I've been teaching or mentoring people for more than 2 decades now, and it's my favorite thing in the world is when people get cloud hired or they tell me they got promoted. So we do a lot of leadership training, promotion training, how to get better, as well as how to get hired training. And today, we're going to talk about how to get your first cloud architect job. So the format is going to be, how and why we created a method to get your first cloud architect job or your first tech job. Because it's not something normal people focus on, but we did it, and we did it for a reason. Then we're going to talk about leveraging your current skills, because there's not a single one of you out there that has no experience, regardless of what you think. And I'm going to show you how your current life experience is probably valid. And if you want, in the end, I'll do 30 minutes of group, I'll do an hour worth of group coaching, and I can tell anyone how to leverage the past experience, and I'm happy to do so at the end of this call. Then we're going to talk about how to be the hiring manager's dream hire, because when you lack experience and you want to get your first job, you've got to be so likable from the hiring manager that they look past your experience and say, wow, this person's competent, likable, and I need them on my team. We're going to talk about how to do that. Then we're going to talk about how to build a resume that sells, because a resume is a sales document. In fact, it's a sales document that says, why should I hire you? And then after that, we'll talk about how to make sure your resume goes to the hiring manager and doesn't get blocked by HR. And then at that point, we'll open it up for at least an hour, and you guys can ask any questions you want on Zoom, on YouTube, and you can go back and forth. And if you're on Zoom or on YouTube and you want to ask a question and go on Zoom, you'll be able to go on Zoom by clicking one of the lives to the links, live Zoom link. And if you're on Zoom and you wanted to go to YouTube, well, you know how to do that as well. So there's the ability to go back and forth today, and we're grateful and happy to talk to all of you. And let's get you guys cloud hired. So why on earth would a company invent a how to get your first tech job method? I'm going to tell you right now, it was for me. See, I've been in tech for 25 years, but I'm not a tech person. Not at all. In fact, 25 years ago, I decided I love tech. In fact, here's how I decided. I was buying, 25 years ago, about $30,000 a year of servers and routers and switches and firewalls. And, I did it because I was just playing with tech. I'd practice medicine from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and then I'd get home, and as soon as I got home, all I did was work on tech. I'd build servers, I'd build networks, and I did it just because I loved it. And one day my wife says to me, she's like, dear, if you're spending, half of our income or a third of your income on tech, why don't you just do it for a career? That way you don't have to work from, say, 9 to 5 or 9 to 7, and then come home from 7 to midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning and play with tech. Well, I knew my wife was right. I knew she was right, and I decided I was going to be a tech professional. So I did what everybody else did. I went and got certified. That's going to get me hired, right? No. So here's what I did. I went and paid $5,000 for this 5-day MCSE boot camp. 5 days later, I passed all the Microsoft tests, and I was a Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer. No jobs. So then I locked myself in a room for 4 days, became a Cisco Certified Network Associate, no jobs. Took a 10-day, $11,000 CCNP boot camp. I was there. We went through like about 8,000 pages of study materials inside of the 10 days. And I passed all 4 exams while I was there. I was a CCNP. I got home from that trip where the boot camp was. I took 2 more exams, the Cisco Certified Design Associate and the Cisco Certified Design Professional. And now, wow, I've got 3 professional certifications. The Cisco Certified Network Professional, the Cisco Certified Design Professional, the Micro Certified Systems Engineer. I sent 5 job applications out and I got 5 rejections. Now, the good news, in those days, people would actually tell you why they rejected you, and it wasn't automated like it is today. And most of the rejections said, Mike, you don't have any experience in tech and you don't have any degrees in tech. Seem like you've got an interesting resume. Very interesting. Medicine, these certifications, but we can't figure it out. So I heard that and I said, maybe they're right. Now, I didn't know what to do about it, but I knew they were right. I didn't have any relevant experience in tech, and I had certifications, which I thought was experience, but it is not. But don't worry, it's pretty easy to get hired, and that's why we're walking through the example of how we started this. So what did I do? I'm going to tell you this right now. I was at a loss, and I know if I sent out 5 things and got the same 5 rejections every time, sending out 500 more didn't make sense. If you bang your head against the wall a bunch of times and it hurts each time, don't keep doing it. Do something different instead. So what I did is I went to my thinking place. My thinking place is the gym. I live in a gym. I like the gym. I work out. I love the gym. So that's been my life. So that night I went to go do some deadlifts. In those days, I was powerlifting. I was deadlifting about 700 pounds. In the middle of a set of 700-pound deadlifts, a buddy of mine comes over to me and he's like, Mike, how's your job search going? I'm like, it's really going horrible. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I keep applying for jobs and I keep getting rejected. And he says, why are you applying for jobs? And I said, how else am I going to get one? He said, Michael, you don't apply for tech jobs when you have no experience. He says, if you do, you get rejected. I said, okay, what am I going to do? Call the CEO on the phone and say, hire me? He says, no. He says, I'll give you my recruiter. The recruiter will do the following. The recruiter will, if he thinks you're worth working with, the recruiter will call one of his contacts, put you directly in front of the hiring manager, and then you get your chance to get interviewed, and that's your chance to get hired. So I was all excited by this, but I didn't want to use his recruiter. I called a recruiter in California because I lived in Philadelphia, and I knew there was no way my wife would let us move to California because it was too far away from our family. So I called a recruiter in California. I spent 20 minutes on the phone with the recruiter, and something amazing happened. The recruiter told me everything I needed to do to get hired. And it doesn't happen in today's world. The recruiters typically don't do that the same way, but the recruiter told me everything I needed to get hired. The recruiter spent 45 minutes on the phone with me telling me everything that employers desired. I had a master list of what the hiring managers wanted. Now, I was really excited because now I figured I've got something. So what did I do? I was ready to say, I know what to do. And then the scientist in me, the person that practiced medicine prior to moving to tech, listened to this. And I said, just because one person tells you something doesn't mean it's an accurate sample. So here's what I did. I called 50 recruiters in total. I sent 50 recruiters a nice gift. Spent about an hour on the phone with all these recruiters. That's why I sent them all a nice gift. In the end, I had a master list of what hiring managers wanted. I knew exactly what they wanted. So you know what I did? I go on my first interview, literally speaking, my first interview. The hiring manager's name was Devendra. I remember it like it was yesterday. He asked me a behavioral question like, tell me about yourself. I tell him about myself. He asked me a tech question, I answer it. He asked me another tech question, I answer it. Devendra asked me a third tech question, and I don't know the answer. And instead of doing what 99% of the world does, which is bluff, which is a lie, I said, Devendra, I'm sorry I've not had the opportunity to learn that technology yet. I said, as a matter of fact, it's Monday at 11:30 a.m. and Friday last week at 6:30, I was still doing rounds on my patients to the hospital. And I love tech so much, and I am so excited to be here with you today on my first tech interview ever. I said, but I've just not had a chance to learn that technology yet. I said, but I'm highly motivated, highly energetic, highly enthusiastic. I said, I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I know how to find the answers to things quickly. And if I was part of your team, I'd stay up and read 1,000 pages a day until I mastered this. I said, but this is not something I know, and I wanted to be honest with you to form a good relationship in case we work together. I didn't really have any idea what was going to happen at that point. And then Devendra sticks out his hand and he shakes my hand and he says, I'm going to hire you. And I was bewildered because I just told him I didn't have to do anything. And he says, Mike, I've never done an interview like this in my entire life. He said, first, I trust you. And he said, I've interviewed people every day and they lie to me and I can't hire anybody that lies to me. He said, two, you're actually really competent. He said, you know this much, more than half of my team, and you've never worked before in your life. Imagine what's going to happen when you work. And he said that integrity, I trust you. And he said, just that's enough. And he said, your attitude, he said, I need to hire you. And he said, but I have a problem. And I said, okay, I figured he was going to put me in a lower position. He said, you applied to be a network engineer. And I said, yes. He said, you're not a network engineer. And I said, okay. I'm thinking, what am I? And I figure he's going to tell me. And he says, you are a senior network engineer. He said, because if I make you a network engineer and not a senior network engineer, you'll be gone inside of 6 months. Well, tell you what, he made me a senior network engineer. 6 months later, I was the lead architect on the team, and I built a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tech career. And you know what I did? You know why I was so good and it grew so fast? 2 things. I listened to everything that those recruiters told me about what hiring managers want. And I literally did this. I became everything they told me. So I looked at, my starting point. I looked at what those hiring managers, those recruiters told me the hiring managers wanted. I did a gap analysis and I filled in every single gap. Every single gap. That's the key. You got to fill in every single gap so you can be exactly what the hiring manager wants. When you go to the store to buy something, you buy what you want. So I'm going to teach you how to be exactly what the hiring manager wants, and you'll get hired. That's why my students in the Cloud Architect Career Development Program get hired every single day. I get a notification, and that's why. So we're going to go, and we'll talk more about that later, but I really want to talk about how you get hired in case you're on your own, no matter what. I want you getting cloud hired. So let's talk about our first principle of our system. And whether you're with us or you're not, it's really important. There is no such thing as no experience. This is so important. I'm going to say it again. There is no such thing as no experience. None. Every one of us has experience from our lives or our past careers, and those past careers, in most cases, can help us with our future careers if, and only if, we know how to show the hiring manager that our old job is the same as our new job. So here's the lessons I learned out of medicine. First, I learned how to build your career for medicine. 2, I learned how to be an architect for medicine. And 3, I learned the most critical skills that will help you in your architect career. It will double your salary. It will give you the ability to get promoted 10 times faster than the rest. And I learned all these things in medicine. And this is why I had a great tech career. The first thing that I learned from practicing medicine is the importance of having deep, deep, deep knowledge and foundational knowledge of whatever you do. In medicine, if you don't know how the body works, you can't treat your patient. So super, super, super important. You must know how the body works in order to treat the patient. But here's what I really learned. I learned how to have depth, and strong knowledge. And here's what I mean. You know who I will never hire? Ever? A 10x AWS certified. And do you know why I will never hire a 10x AWS certified person? Because I know that they know so little, but about a lot of things. And that person can't do the job. Now, let's look at a specialist by comparison. I'm a specialist, but let's look at the way we train doctors. To become a specialist, it's 4 years undergraduate to learn the human body. It's 4 years of medical school to learn medicine. It's a 3-year residency / internship to basically get some experience. And then it's a 3 to 5 year fellowship. So, for example, to get into entry-level practice for a specialty in medicine, it could be 17 years. I'm going to say this again, 17 years. 17 years of 4,000 hours a week of training. 17 years. So minimum, it takes 10,000 hours of knowledge to be an expert on one thing, just one small thing. And I learned in medicine. So did you know there's the heart's the size of my human fist? Did you know there's more than 10 kinds of cardiologists that all go to school for 17 years each just to deal with the heart? That's depth of knowledge. You want to be a great architect? You have depth of knowledge. Don't have all this knowledge of sysops and DevOps and scripting and coding and everybody else's job other than yours. Have depth of knowledge. Be great at your job, not somebody else's. And not only will you get hired, you will get paid more, and your career will be like a rocket ship, because what's going to happen is you'll become the go-to person, the person that actually knows how to get the job done. Now, the next thing, and this is the reason it's part of there's no such thing as no experience, I learned to be an architect by practicing medicine. So when I was practicing internal medicine, I learned architecture. Here's what I did practicing internal medicine. Patient would come in and they'd say, my throat hurts. And I'd say, tell me about it. What makes your throat better? What makes your throat worse? Then what would I do? I'd take out a flashlight, a tongue depressor, I'd look in their throat, and I'd say, wow, it's red. That was my assessment. It's red, or erythematous, red and swollen, whatever you want to call it. Then I'd say most likely cause is beta hemolytic strep group B, and I'd prescribe a prescription that would kill beta hemolytic strep group B. Okay, now what do I do as an architect? Mr. and Mrs. Client, tell me about your business. What are your business goals? What are your business challenges? What are your pain points? What are your competitors doing? Wait, the doctor just asked the patient, how are you today? What brings you in today? The architect asked the client, tell me about your business. How are you? What's going on? Same thing. Next, the doctor asked the client, let me examine your systems. Remember tongue to pressure flashlight? Architect, Mr. CEO, let me baseline your systems. I'm going to bring in a team of cloud engineers. We're going to see the kind of servers you have. We're going to look at the operating systems in your servers, the CPU performance, the utilization of your network, whatever. So doctor interviews a patient, architect interviews a client. Doctor examines the patient's systems. Architect examines the client's tech systems. It's the same job so far. Doctor make a diagnosis, architect make a diagnosis. Same thing so far. Doctor prescribe the medication, architect write up and prescribe your architecture. The job is the same. So 90% of you that have had jobs in business and consulting, it's the same job of an architect. There are so many consultative jobs that we're in that are the same as an architect. Sales, management consulting, so many things are architecture. Be able to show the hiring manager that you're not new, that you don't have no experience. You have experience because your current experience is really going to help you for your new job. So that's really, really, really important. There's no such thing as no experience. Life is cumulative. Leverage your past experience and you will get cloud hired. Now, the last thing that I learned in medicine, this will help be the biggest factor improving your cloud computing career, is as follows. When it comes to getting information, the better the quality of your information, the better your diagnostic skills are, the better your diagnosis and your treatment plans. And the same thing happens in tech. The better your ability to elicit information from the client, the better you can ask the client questions, the better the quality of the information you'll get. The better the information you'll get, the better quality of your architectures. So what I learned from medicine is the better your communication skills are, the more likely you are to actually get the right information from your patient. You know what I learned as an architect? The better you are at asking questions and getting the right information, the better access to information, the better your architecture will be. It's the same thing. They used to say garbage in, garbage out. You know what? Garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good information in the first place, you've got nothing in the end. And that's what I learned from medicine. And what I learned from medicine made me a cloud architect. So now you know there's no such thing as no experience. So now let's talk about buying and purchasing decisions. When people buy something, they buy what they want. And I hate to say it, but I like to look at everything from the basic foundational level. If I apply for a job somewhere, I am the product. The hiring manager is the customer, and the customer is going to pay to purchase my services. My services are the product. So if you want to sell a car, make the car look good. If you want to sell a house, it should be neat and clean and well painted. The carpet should look good. The tiles should look good. If you're in a place like Florida, like I am, where everybody has tiles, but if you're in a place like New Jersey, where people have carpet, it should all look clean, for example. So here's what the hiring managers want. Be what the hiring managers want. You get hired every time. So what the hiring managers want, and this comes from a lifetime of asking recruiters and hiring managers, everyone I possibly could find, which is thousands and thousands and thousands. So here's what hiring managers tell you. First and foremost, they want someone that can do the job. That means technically competent, which means if you can't do the job, you can't get hired. So you must be competent. We're going to talk about how to become a competent cloud architect, because it is very different than being a competent cloud engineer, and it's completely different than DevOps, and it's completely different than SysOps, and it's completely different than being a database person. So we're going to talk about what that job is, but you must be competent to do the job. That is the number one thing that hiring managers say they're looking for. You know what the number two thing is? Trustworthiness. So let's go back to Devendra on that interview where he asked me a question I didn't know, and I gave him an honest answer, and he hired me. Do you know, number two, when you call hiring managers, they want someone they can trust. So I want you to really think about this. What do 99% of all people do in a job interview? When you ask that person a question that they don't know, they bluff. Okay, a bluff is a lie. A lie means you can't trust the person. So 99% of all people go on a job interview and they talk the manager out of hiring them by lying. If you don't know something, be honest about it. Now, if you don't know everything, you're not competent, in which case you can't do the job. But if you don't know one thing, tell them about it and be honest. Show them that you're honest, and sometimes that's enough to save the interview. I'm sorry I've not had the opportunity to learn that technology yet, but I'm highly motivated, highly energetic, highly enthusiastic, and I love tech. And if I was part of your team, I'd go above and beyond to learn it. But I need to be honest with you so we can form a relationship on an honest, ethical basis. Say something like that. You'll be surprised. My students do that all the time and they get hired versus passed over. So if you don't know, you can always try and salvage the interview with honesty. So what do hiring managers want? Someone that can do the job and someone that is trustworthy. Now, what else? Hiring managers want someone that knows what they know and knows what they don't know. Okay, this is really important. This is the safety factor thing. Now, when you ask someone and they bluff or they lie, you can't trust them. So you don't know if someone's competent. What you want is the person that says, I know this, and my skill on this is a 9 out of 10, and they know it. I don't know this at all, and I could learn it, or I could bring in the subject matter expert. That's what we need to do. So competency and safety. Why do organizations care about safety and the ability to know what you know and know what you don't? Because when you don't, or somebody doesn't, they make errors. Perfect example is somebody at Facebook was not an expert on BGP. They made a BGP configuration mistake because they didn't know what they were doing in their head, and it cost Facebook $8 billion in a single day. So let's look at it this way. Organizations care. Can you do the job? Meaning, are you competent? Are you trustworthy? And are you safe? Now, competent, I'm going to say it one more time, is not experienced. You can be doing something your whole life and be a disaster about it. I know a lot of 70-year-old doctors that have been bad doctors for the last 40 years. I know a lot of people in networking that have been bad network engineers for 20 years. And you know what? They're no good. And I also know people that have zero experience that are great. There's a 14-year-old that can hack into the Pentagon. There's a 14-year-old that can hack into this. Competency means the ability to do it, not experience. Experience means you doing something. So far, what employers want? Someone that can do the job, someone that can be trusted, and someone that is competent and safe. Now, the next thing, and this is really important, hiring managers want someone that is energetic and enthusiastic. But think about it. Do you want this person? Wake me up when it's time for work. Or do you want this person? I'm here. Let's get to work. You want the person that's ready. It's here to get to work. If you hire someone, do you want someone that needs a nap? Or do you hire someone that's got some courage and conviction and they love what they do and they're going to do the best job ever? Of course you do. So you want someone that can do the job. Someone that's trustworthy, someone that's competent and safe, someone that's energetic and enthusiastic. What's next? What do hiring managers say? They want someone that energizes others or brings out the best in others. Do you know what that means? Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. So that's the next thing on a hiring manager's list. Now, you know what they want. What are the two last things hiring managers want? They want a team player. Let's face it. You're going to be on an architecture team. You're not a one-man or one-person band. You're going to be this. You might have a cloud network architect like me, and a generic cloud architect, and a cloud security architect, and a cloud IAM architect. And yes, that's different than security. And a cloud big data architect on your team. Your team might have 30 cloud engineers to help doing the build. You're going to be part of a team, for example. So team player, got to be a team player. And the last thing organizations want are someone that goes above and beyond, the people that they're going to promote to rise. That's what organizations want. They don't want average. So show the hiring manager that you can do the job, that you can be trusted, that you're competent and safe, that you're energetic, enthusiastic, you bring out the best in others. You're a team player and you're willing to go above and beyond, and you will get hired every single time, literally speaking, every single time. Now, here is the next issue. And this is why we find people struggle to get a cloud architect job. And they don't need to be. But the reason we see people struggling to get cloud architect jobs, the reason I interviewed 1,000 people that were AWS certified prior to creating this program is to see what was missing, because I knew what was missing in the certifications. The certifications are the name of the service and how to configure it. Here's the problem. For we cloud architects and solution architects, we don't configure anything. We don't code anything. So all of the training is based upon configuration and implementation, which is cloud engineering work. So we cloud architects are systems designers. Got to tell you this, in 25 years, I've never written a line of code. That's not true. One time I did try to write an expect script, TCL, which was expect username, send M Gibbs, expect password, send M Gibbs password. I did do that once on a router 20 some years ago for fun, but that was the last version of code I was ever able to write, and it was a 4-line script. So I've been an architect for decades, and I've never written a script, nor have any of the other architects that I know. So what is a cloud architect? If you want to get a cloud architect hired, you've got to be competent. What does a cloud architect do? I'm telling you right now, it is a system designer. Here's what we do, and then I'm going to read what they do for you out of CIO magazine, so you can see that other people that are being published are saying the same things. Here's what we do. We interview a client. We ask their business, their legal, their environments, their regulatory environments. We ask about their business goals. We ask about their customers are doing. Then we evaluate the organization systems. Then we do a design, and then we turn our design over back to the customer. We try and sell it to the customer. And as soon as the customer agrees to our design, we hand it to a team of cloud engineers, and they build it. And when the cloud engineers are done building it, they hand it over to a team that sets out people to maintain it. We are designers. Architects are designers. Building architects design the building, and a construction crew builds it. Cloud architects are system designers. We design it. And cloud engineers and DevOps engineers build it for us. We don't configure. So what is a cloud architect? You've got to be an architect, which is a system designer. An architect is all hybrid between a systems designer and a business executive. In order to get the requirements to be able to transform your customer's environment, you must understand business, because you've got to ask the customer about the business. So if you don't have the business acumen, you can't do the job. Then, because you're interacting with the client, and you're dealing with CEOs and CIOs and CTOs, you've got to be CXO relevant. You've got to have that executive communication skills. You're going to have the emotional intelligence, the presentation skills, and the sales skills and the leadership skills. You're going to have the ROI modeling skills to show a customer that $1 billion cloud solution is going to deliver $3 billion of sales results. You've got to be able to show that money placed here mitigates risk by XYZ%, which equals a certain number of dollars. Being an architect is not about configuring. It's about designing and transforming a customer's business with technology. That's why we get paid so well, because we transform an organization. I want you to look at it this way. If you design something for $10 million and it delivers $100 million of value to the customer, it doesn't matter if they paid you $3 million of cash payments of consulting fees for you to do it, because they're still ahead by $87 million. Solve your customer's problems, your salaries, whatever you want it to be. Now, let's talk about exactly what cloud architects do. So this article was published in CIO magazine. And for those of you that have not been in tech like me for 25 years, here's the way it works. We've got a CEO like me that sets the strategy for the organization. And my CIO will do this. They will come to me and they will say, Mike, to execute on this vision, we need this technology to do what your business goals. And I'd say, great, let's get the technology. So the CIO will then hire the VP of IT, who then hires the director of IT, who hires the hiring manager, to hire the people to do the stuff to meet my needs as the CEO. So that's what the CIO does. They solve the organization's challenges through technology, and they build and lead the team. So if you want to know what a cloud architect does, ask the people that pay them. Ask the people that hire them. And guess what? Gartner did just that. So Gartner's an organization that evaluates best cloud, best router, best firewall industry trends. And Gartner looked at these job descriptions, these solution architect job descriptions and cloud architect job descriptions, and they looked at it in horror like the rest of us and said, what are these things? These aren't cloud architect jobs. These aren't architect jobs. These aren't even engineering jobs. We don't even know what they are. So here's the thing. Gartner went and pulled CIOs, and here's what the CIOs told people that they were looking for. Here's what the CIO said their cloud architects do. And by the way, I'm going to read off what was published in this magazine, and it's exactly what I've done for the last 2.5 decades. It's exactly what my friends at AWS do. It's exactly what my friends at Google do. It's exactly what my friends at Palo Alto do. It's exactly what my friends at Cisco do. We architects all do the same thing. And here's what was published. According to Gartner, published in CIO magazine, cloud architects lead the cultural change for cloud adoption. Makes sense, what I've done. Develop and coordinate a cloud architecture, that's that system design that I'm talking about, and develop a cloud strategy and coordinating the adoption process. That's what I do. Next, what else does the cloud architect do? They find talent with necessary skills. They assess application, software, hardware. They create a cloud broker team. They establish best practices for cloud across the company. They select cloud providers and mitigate risk, oversee governance, work with the IT security people to monitor privacy and develop incident response procedures, manage budgets and estimate costs, and operate at scale. So when I've been an architect for years and I've been training architects for years, I said, look, this is a 50-50 job. 50% technical, 50% leadership. It's probably 60 to 70% leadership and 30 to 40% technical, but I like to say they're 50-50. Where do people not get hired as cloud architects? They don't study the leadership. They don't study the business. They don't study the communication. They don't study the emotional intelligence. Instead, they focus on scripting or Terraform, which is great for DevOps engineers, but not for architects, or SysOps, which is maintenance. Focus on your career. So let's go through this again. Let's go through what was published and look at it, whether it's business, technical, or leadership. So let's look at it this way. Leading the cultural change for adoption. My right hand will do tech. My left hand will do leadership. Leading the cultural change for cloud adoption is leadership. Then developing, coordinating cloud architecture is tech. Developing a strategy and coordinating the adoption process. That's leadership all the way. Finding talent with necessary skills. That's leadership. Assessing application software and hardware. We'll call that tech. Then we'll say establishing best practices for cloud across the company. We'll call that tech, even though it's probably not. Create a cloud broker team. We'll call that leadership. Selecting cloud providers and vetting third-party services. We'll call that tech. Overseeing governance and mitigating risk. That's leadership. Working with the IT security to monitor. That's also leadership. So leadership. Manage budgets and estimate costs. We'll call that tech. And operating scale. We'll call that leadership. So of the ones, we have 7 on the leadership and 5 are on the tech. You can see it's more leadership than tech. If you try and be a technical person and you don't focus on the leadership and you don't focus on the presentation, you're not an architect, you're an engineer. And engineers are very needed people, and engineers are great people, but they're not architects. So train for the job you want, get hired for the job you want. So how do you become a technically competent, knowledgeable, capable cloud architect? I'm going to tell you right now, it's not certification. Although certification is in the plan, it's not certification. You must learn at every opportunity. So there's 2 ways. Way 1 is to take our cloud architect career development program that is start to finish everything you need. And for people that don't have a tech background, it's 250 hours. I'm sorry, for people that do have a tech background, it's a 250-hour program. And for people that don't have a tech background, it's a 500-hour program. It's got live training, as well as on-demand training, as well as labs to the point where people even build their own clouds. And I'll talk about that more later. But what do you really need to do? You need to be technically competent. So here's how you get technically competent. If you're training with us, you'll be technically competent. Super easy. But if you're not, here's what I need you to do. There's going to be 4 basic networking books that are going to explain IP to you. And everybody needs them. They're foundational level if you're not with us. The first one is Stevens TCP/IP. The second 2 are Routing TCP/IP, volumes 1 and 2 from Jeff Doyle and Carol. The next one is Internet Routing Architectures from Bassam Halabi. That will give you some foundational network work. It's about $250 for the 4 books, about 5,000 pages. That'll give you an intro to networking. Now, beyond that, you still need more on networking. So you can go to the Cisco page, and it'll take you about 2,000 pages. I need you to read about NAT and all the use cases. And it's not just connecting to the internet, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, NAT overlap, all of that. Then I need you to learn about switching, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking protocols. Then I need you to learn about Ether channel, port aggregation protocol, those kind of things for link aggregation groups. I need you to play with some fiber optic connectivity to get used to, like, unilateral link detection and bilateral link detection failures and those kind of things. So that'll give you some of that. And I also need you to get used to QoS policies and those things. That should cover you from the networking side. Then I need you to learn DNS. Go to F5. You can learn about DNS. You need to learn about load balancers. Go to F5. Learn about load balancers. About 500 pages of load balancers. You're going to get solid. I mean, really solid. So then I need you to go to VMware, 500 pages or so on virtualization materials. You get it. Go to Kubernetes on VMware. Do the same thing for containers, about 500 pages of free materials, and you'll get it. Then go to Microsoft. Do the same thing for Active Directory to learn IAM. Then I recommend you go to Dell EMC and IBM and learn a lot about block, object, and file storage. And again, you're going to need a few thousand pages there if you're not with us, because you need depth on this. Everything is storage. and learn about server architecture, learn about virtualization architecture, then learn about network file sharing protocols such as NFS and server message block. Then that'll kind of give you some of the knowledge. Learn Linux. These are the kind of things that you should do. These are the things that you need to know. You need about basically the network and the data center. What is the cloud? It's a network and a data center. So what do you need to learn? A network and a data center. So I say this network and the data center thing, but I want to make this really clear. Why do you have to know so much about the network and the data center? People are like, Mike, isn't that what we're getting away from? Well, yes. But first, we're going from a physical data center and we're moving it to a virtual data center. So we have a virtual machine in the data center. We've got a virtual machine in the cloud. We've got a container in the data center. We've got a container in a cloud. We've got a load balancer in the data center. We've got a load balancer in the cloud. We've got a firewall in the data center. We have a firewall in the cloud. See, what you can see is it's all the same. Literally speaking, it's all the same. It's just virtualized. So you need to know the data center, but it's not just that. If your job as a cloud architect is basically to take the things that are in the data center and move them to the cloud, how do you take the things to the cloud that you don't know what they are? It would be like me saying, hey, cook some gyros and some chicken souffle, or some gyros and souvlaki. But if you've never seen the meat and you've never seen the olive oil and you've never seen the lemon juice, the garlic, the salt, pepper, and oregano, you couldn't make a souvlaki because you have to know what the ingredients are before you cook it. So the same thing. So you got to learn the network and the data center. So that's the first and the component. And then you've got to learn the cloud, which is the virtualized network in the data center. So those kind of materials I gave you will give you on your own. It's about 20,000 pages of materials, but that will give you the foundations and what you need to know if you're not with us. If you're with us, it's covered. Next, let's talk about your certifications. I need you to get good professional certifications. The minimum level of certification, generally speaking, to get your first cloud architect job in today's world is the solution architect professional. Now, if you've got a CCIE, for example, or if, for example, you have 20 years experience in cloud or networking, then it's not critical because the certifications don't matter at that point. But if you've got no background, at minimum, you're going to need an Azure expert or an AWS certified solution architect professional. And then, you know what else you're going to need? You're going to need one other thing. You're going to need one more professional or expert certification in some specific area. So for my cloud networking people, I like them to do a CCNP or an Aviatrix multi-cloud professional network engineer, along with an AWS certified solution architect professional. For my security people, I'm looking for a CISSP or a CEH master or a CCSP along with the AWS one. I'm not looking for multiple cloud certs. The cloud certs are really, really, really intro to an intro to an intro to an intro to an intro junior level. So AWS Advanced Networking is like intro to junior level networking. AWS Advanced Security is like intro to junior level security. And when it comes from having a background when you've got no experience, you don't need intro to junior level things. You need senior level stuff. So certification, certified solution architect professional, Azure expert, Google professional cloud architect, although I don't recommend that primarily because the lack of market dominance, although I think the Google Cloud is a great cloud. And for my experts, I think it's a great cert, and I have it myself because I think it's a great one. But typically speaking, for people that don't have a job and are getting the first one, Azure expert or certified solution architect professional, and an industry standard one. Now, the next piece is getting experience. So we cloud architects don't build stuff. We don't configure stuff either. We design it. But somewhere along the line, they're going to ask you, have you done this before? And you've got to be able to say yes. So you need to do some labs. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Nobody cares if you can set up an S3 bucket, and nobody cares if you can set up a WordPress site on an EC2 instance. I could teach an 8-year-old to do that in less than 5 minutes, and I have. I've taught an 8-year-old to set up an S3 bucket. I taught an 8-year-old to set up an EC2 instance in less than 10 minutes, and it was really cute. When she does it, she clicks, and she says, EC2, and she looks so cute when she does it. But nobody's going to pay anybody $150,000 to $300,000 a year to basically click 3 boxes and set up an EC2 instance. They pay you. The reason architects get paid so well is our ability to transform businesses. We are a solution provider. That's what makes us special. That's why we're not a tech professional. We're half tech. We're our business leaders. So this is really, so the next part is getting your experience. I got to tell you what we do for our students. And if you're one of our students, it's included. If you're not one of our students, I'm going to tell you how to get the same experience on your own. If you're one of my students, you're going to VPN into our data center and you're going to do these kind of labs. And if you're not one of our students, here's what I recommend. You buy yourself a 16-core Xeon server, 16-core Xeon server with a minimum of 128 gigs of RAM, 3 SSD drives in a RAID 0 configuration or an NVMe drive. The CPU should be at least 2 years old and no more than 7, and that way you can get a quality product at a price that you can afford. On this server, if you're not with us, and if you're with us, these are the labs you're going to do on our servers. The server costs about double that our course is, but I just care that you get hired, whether it's with us or on your own, it doesn't matter. I want you getting cloud hired. So on this server, set up server virtualization, build some containers, build a firewall, build a VPN concentrator, set up the LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, set up server message block sharing, set up NFS sharing, set up Active Directory, and build yourself a cloud. You want to be a cloud architect, you have to know how the cloud works. And how are you going to know how the cloud works? Build a cloud. Every one of my students does. They all build a cloud. And I don't need a BPC. I don't have a single student that's with me for more than 8 weeks that couldn't create AWS from scratch. They all know how to do it because that's what it takes to be competent. Build a cloud. So if you're with us, you'll be building a cloud. And that cloud is going to look and feel a lot like AWS or Azure or Google or Oracle. You're going to start with a server and you're going to build a cloud. And by doing it that way, you know about the cloud. So that's what you need to do. Now, let's go back to all those things that I talked about. Energy, enthusiasm, willingness to go above beyond, technical competency, and know what you know what you don't know. And now on your resume, oh my God, you've got this section that says Go Cloud Architects or Research and Development if you're not with us. And you're talking about building clouds. So does that look motivated, energetic, enthusiastic? I think so. And hiring managers tell me they do every day. So build yourself a cloud. Build this stuff for real. Build it the hard way. Build that cloud of yours. Federate that cloud with that Active Directory server you built. Heck, take that cloud that you built, connect it to other clouds, create your hybrid and multi-cloud environments. Build a cloud. Become great. Learn the cloud. Know how all of it works. And then you'll be like me. You can go from cloud to cloud in a weekend. Somebody said, Mike, I want to... What's it going to be like to get certified? I took the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam with 1 weekend's notice. I bought the Cybex book, read it on Saturday and Sunday, and took the exam on Monday. Why? It's not that the exam was easy. It's if you know the cloud, you go from cloud to cloud at a moment's notice because you're going to figure out that a virtual machine is a virtual machine, and a container is a container, and block storage is just block storage, and object storage is object storage. And it doesn't matter if it's called Blob on Microsoft, S3 on AWS, or cloud storage on Google. It's just object storage. So learn the cloud. So that's why we do. And our students all know how to work on multiple clouds. The reality is you can't just be an AWS solution architect. You can't just be an Azure solution architect in today's world. It's not enough. A year ago, I would say it was great. A year ago, everybody was on a single cloud. Now, less than 3% of customers are on a single cloud. The rest are multi-cloud. And the reason is they need business continuity planning. A single cloud is a single point of failure. So learn the cloud. We teach the cloud. Don't just learn AWS and don't just learn Google. You learn to drive a car, learn to drive the cloud. Don't worry about the cloud provider. So next, what's the next thing that you've got to do to go get that first cloud architect job? Well, it has to be your resume. Your resume must be a sales tool for you. What is a resume? And you know, this is really important. What is a resume? It is a marketing document. It is an advertisement that says why I should hire you. It is an advertisement of why I hire you. So what is, for example, the biggest challenge that advertisers face? Getting people to read the advertisement. Getting people to read the advertisement. That is the biggest challenge that an organization faces. So guess what you have with your resume? What's your biggest challenge? Getting somebody to read your resume. Just like a marketer. So I need you to think like you're working for an advertising agency on your resume because it's a sales document that says, why should I hire you? So what do? What do I recommend? Well, you got to make your resume scream, read me, read me, read me, because otherwise it can't. Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper. Somebody sees a busy piece of paper. They're like, oh. So you got to look interesting. So on the first line, in big, bold letters, anything that's impressive with you, I want you to put it there. I can tell you what mine does. It says Mike Gibbs, comma, MS, comma, MBA, comma, CCIE, comma, Google Professional Cloud Architect. And I usually list a single AWS cert, not always, because I don't want to look certification cuckoo. Because if you have too many certifications, My clients are going to look at me and say, he's not an architect or an executive, he's a certification junkie. So I put my biggest, my boldest, and only the most important certifications. So if you've got 2 professionals, guess what? List both professional certifications. Don't list 4 associates. And when you've got 1 professional, just list the professional. That's the only one the employers care about. So I want you to look strong with a good, solid brand. So top line, whatever's most important about you, that's going to get the people to read it. Now, next, you should have an executive summary. After the people see the big line with all your prestigious things, your CCIEs, your MBAs, or whatever you have, doesn't matter, whatever you have, we all have something impressive. Just the next thing should be an executive summary, and the executive summary should show what you can do for the employer. My wife's a shoe addict. I mean, a huge shoe addict, to the point where we've got 300 pairs of shoes around the house. And I ask her, I'm like, when you buy shoes, do you ask them what they want? And she's like, no, dear, I buy the shoes that I like. So guess what? You want to be what the hiring manager wants. So in this executive summary, show how you're the solution to whatever the hiring manager needs. I'm going to make it up right now. I might say, okay, got it. Accomplished technology professional with 25 years experience running large technology organizations, closing billion-dollar-plus technology deals, and leading large teams. 20 years experience coaching and mentoring others, ability to take customer problems and solve them through technology. Something that's very quick that says, read me. So first line, something impressive about you. Next line reads, read me. Next, okay, where do we have from there? If you're with us and you're one of our Cloud Architect career development students, then here's what you put. You put a Go Cloud Architect section, and inside of this section, work with deployed server virtualization for enterprise-wide computing. Set up OpenStack Ansible Cloud for enterprise-wide computing. Deployed Docker or Kubernetes containers for enterprise-wide computing. Set up Active Directory for enterprise-wide authentication. Federated OpenStack Ansible Cloud with Active Directory for OpenStack for AAA authentication or for IAM. But the point is, just build it as you go along. Put the experiences that are real, the stuff that hiring managers care about. You do this, then you're in great shape. So that's all it really takes. If you've been published, put a publication section. This weekend, 30 of my students work with me, and we created a new book, and all 30 of them will be published authors. So try to do things to get your name out there. Do some public speaking at a conference if you're an expert. Get your name out there, build your brand, and you will get hired. And, if you don't have those media contacts, join a company like ours. And what we do is we periodically try to find ways to help build and improve the brand of our students. We give them guidance on their social media, guidance on their resume, guidance on the kind of things to post, guidance on the way to communicate. All this is necessary there. So make sure that you do this regardless of whether you're with us or without us, is part of your branding. Now, here's the thing. Here's the next part of our system, and this is really, really important. You've got to bypass HR. I'm going to say this one more time. You've got to get HR out of the way. So here is the thing. HR are good, nice, knowledgeable, highly, highly educated, good people. Okay, we covered that. But what are HR not? HR are not technology professionals. And that is a major problem when it comes to hiring technology. So first, HR are not tech people, which means HR has no ability to determine if tech people are qualified or not. Now, I also want you to think about number 2 of the HR problem. Here you are, you're an HR rep. You post a job. You get 5,000 responses for this job inside of the first 3 days. 5,000 people want this job. Now, how do you, look at 5,000 of these resumes? It's a nightmare, right? So what does HR do? They create the stupid job description. What they do is they take something maybe a hiring manager would need, and they add 20 Olympic gold medals, 50 years experience, and a certain number of year-old Kubernetes that's not that old in the first place. 1,000 years experience on this. I want a software developer, a DevOps engineer, a maintenance person, the house cleaner. Oh, wait, the architect, the programmer, the network engineer, all in the same person. Well, clearly this isn't going to work. Why is HR doing it? They're trying to reduce the number of people that can apply. So here's what happens. And it happens every single day. HR casts this wide net of jack of all trades. The few people that have got 1,000,001 years experience and 1,000,001 things on their resume get sent up to the hiring manager. We hiring managers ask them on an interview, tell me about this, tell me about this, tell me about this, tell me about this, tell me about this. And what we get is a lot of bluffing because the person's got a little bit of knowledge on a lot of things, but not enough knowledge to be able to do anything. And we don't hire them. So what do every hiring manager do in tech? We say, I'm not hiring from HR. And we call our favorite tech recruiters. And you know how I have Steve Aracrillian or Christina Marino, who comes on periodically almost every other Friday to talk to you, to tell you what hiring managers want as a tech recruiter? Here's what I do as a hiring manager. I call Christina Marino all the time over at IT Excel and say, I need to hire this. I need this quality, this quality, this quality. You know what Christina does? She calls me back a day later and she says, I've got the perfect person for you. I've got someone named Faith. And Faith is extremely capable. She's highly motivated. She's energetic. She's enthusiastic. She's amazing in every single way. And I think you should meet her. So now, here I am. I just got off the phone with Christina Marino, who I completely trust because she's placed wonderful, wonderful candidates for me for the last 20 years. And she's helped me get hired. She's helped many of my students get hired. So now I see this, and now I interview Faith. And I like Faith, but I'm already biased to like Faith. Christina, who I trust, called me and said, Faith is awesome. I interview Faith. I hire Faith, and I'm all excited to have Faith on my team. So I go and interview Faith. Now, I say to Faith, if I make you an offer, you're going to accept it? And she says, yes. In fact, I like Faith so much that I call HR and I say, I'm going to hire Faith. I said, but Faith is very special, better than anybody I've interviewed for a while. I want to pay her 1.3 times the average cloud architect salary because she's extremely emotionally intelligent. She's highly competent, and she's got a level of je ne sais quoi and gravitas that I need on my team. HR says, sure. HR then gives me the financial package that I asked for. I then hire Faith. Life is good in every single way. Now, Faith is doing such a good job. She gets promoted in her current job. Now, 6 months later, a year later, Faith may actually get an auto rejection email from HR saying, I'm sorry, we've decided to move on with other clients. Now, Faith works there. She's been promoted, and she's not going anywhere. The company loves Faith. I got to tell you that I've been auto-rejected from HR 2 years later at 2 of the 5 companies I work for. Here's the reason. I always go through a recruiter. I've got 300 recruiters that we use for our students, although I got to say we use the IT Excel recruiters in New York a lot more than anybody else because their reach and capability is amazing. But we've got an incredible number of recruiters, and there are really some good ones that are out there. Some are not, and some are extremely good. We've got a lot of contacts in here because they matter. So do that. Leverage recruiters. Get in front of the hiring managers. So organizations use recruiters. And why is it so important to get to the hiring manager? Do you want to know the secret sauce of what we do? The real secret weapon that makes us so different than anybody else? I'm going to tell you right now. When it comes to getting hired, 50% of your candidate score is related to your technical competency. And guess what? 50% is related to other stuff. Your soft skills, your emotional intelligence, your gravitas. You know, these are the things that employers are looking for. So if your communication skills, your attitude is better, if your answers are exactly what the hiring manager looks for, if you can show how you have the business acumen, the leadership skills, and all the other stuff, all that other stuff, then the hiring manager says, woo, let's average this. 40 out of 50 on the technical competency, 50 out of 50 on everything else. This candidate is a 90 out of 100. The last 10 people that I interviewed with 20 years experience all scored a score of 70 or less. This score is a 90. I need this person on my team. Here is the secret to getting your first tech job. You can't be as technically competent as somebody that's got 20 years experience. Don't even try. Focus on the critical things that you can become an expert in that short period of time. And that's what we do with our students. Focus the rest of your effort on your interview, on your negotiation skills, on your body language and reading skills so you can do better on the interview. Focus your time on the executive presence, the gravitas, the leadership skills, the ROI modeling, the business acumen, all those other things that are the architect's job anyway, all those other non-tech things. So while your competition is studying for the tech, and guess what? If you only know the tech, you're a cloud engineer, not a cloud architect. Our secret and the reason we're so successful is our candidates are so likable and they speak so well and they interview so well and they've got such executive presence that when they're interviewed, the hiring manager can't help but to hire them. And that's what we do. That's the secret. When it's your first job, you've got to be smooth. You've got to deliver the perfect interview. You can't be talking like this. Hi, my name is Michael, and today we're here today. Hi, I'm Mike Gibbs. Today, we're going to discuss cloud computing. What's special about cloud computing is it enables an organization to leverage a data center that's not their own to give them speed, agility, and cost reduction. I'm just making it up as I go along. But the point is, what's good about cloud computing, so it's knowing how to have that gravitas, how to do that. It's knowing the writing, it's knowing the presentation skills. These are the architect skills. 50% business, 50% non-business, 50% technical. So you can't be an architect by focusing just on the tech. So don't focus on the tech. So how do you get hired? What do you do? Here's what you do. First, you look at your past experience. You think about how your past experience equals your future experience. And you show their future job and you convince the hiring manager of that. 2, you build the perfect resume to get seen by the hiring manager. 3, you develop a recruiting team. But 4, you've got to get technically competent. And technical competency is half of it. But the other half is your emotional intelligence, your executive presence, your leadership skills, your ROI modeling skills, your business acumen skills, your CXO relevancy skills. Knowing whether you're dealing with an intuitive leader, for example, versus a functional versus an analytical, and knowing how to change your communication for the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic audiences. How do you speak to a 5,000 person audience? Because you're going to do it as a cloud architect someday, I promise you. Where do you stare in the corners of the room? Are you going to be writing documents? You have to have a certain level of executive writing. These are the skills of the cloud architect, not just the technical skills. Do these things and you'll get hired every day. If you'll give me 3 minutes to talk about our Cloud Architect Career Development program, and then after that, you guys can ask me any questions you want, leveraging your past experience, leveraging your current experience, literally speaking, anything that you'd like. You can ask me any questions, and I will answer them to help guide you. And I've got an hour, maybe even an hour and a half to do so, and I'll do anything I can to help you. So let me first tell you about our program. We have a Cloud Architect Career Development program, which is a 16-week program for people that work in technology and basically a 32-week program for people that have never worked in tech before. The purpose of this program is to get you cloud hired. Students graduate when they are hired. Students can stay in the program for up to a year, no matter what, but we consider them finished when they are cloud hired or when 1 year passes. And our success rate of getting people cloud hired is amazing. My students get hired every day. Here's how we run our programs. Twice per week, we have live training. I mean, literally, we get on Zoom like we're on Zoom right now, or at least most of us are on Zoom right now. And on Zoom, we do architecture training, and I will be the executive, and the students will ask me about the business. I will tell them about the business, and from there, my students will design a multi-cloud architecture on every call. And it will work with multiple clouds. There's typically about 20,000 remote locations, 40,000 subnets, thousands of servers, the kind of architectures that people will do with 10 and 20 years experience, but we do it together as a team, and I lead it. And that way people get really good experience. So we do live architecture training or leadership training in our classes, which we do twice per week. So live training on Zoom twice per week. And that's how you ask questions, because we know that in the learning process, you got to be there. It's got to be interactive. It's got to be live. So we do live training twice per week. Now, in between our live classes, we've got hundreds of hours of videos to make you great. And you watch the video, there'll be a homework assignment, and then you turn in the assignment via Slack, and we grade it. We give you feedback on it. Anything we can to improve you. And we'll be looking at your presentation skills, your interview skills, your negotiation skills, literally your leadership skills, all of it, and your competency skills. We're going to guide you along the way. We're going to help you with your resume. We're going to help you with your career plan. We're going to help you with everything. So there's that. So then there's the lab. So you'll turn in these homework assignments, career plans, what have you. We'll give you feedback on them. So, and then if you have any questions, again, you'll ask us via Slack, because it's not good enough just to give you video and say you're on your own. We've got to have a real customer experience, because I want all of you to get Cloud Architect hired, and you all will. There's no reason why you can't. So then there's that. Now, we also have a lab component. Now, our labs are the most extensive in the world. Nobody builds a cloud architect program like we do. We literally give you VPN access in. So all you need is a computer, and it doesn't even matter what kind of computer. It can be a completely cheap computer, because all you need is to set up a VPN. It could be less than a Chromebook. And then with a VPN, you'll come into our systems and a web browser. You'll VPN in, you'll access our VMware ESXi servers, and on these servers, you will build all of your labs. Everything, including building your own cloud. You'll be building Active Directory servers and containers and firewalls and VPN concentrators, and you'll be setting up NFS for Linux and Unix systems. You'll be setting up SMB for Windows systems. You'll be setting up VPN concentrators, firewalls, LAMP stacks, and of course, you'll build a cloud. You've got to have this kind of experience so you can show the hiring managers. So that's what you'll do in our program. Twice a week, live training, hundreds of hours of training in between classes on everything. Cloud computing. We also cover the Certified Solution Architect Professional in our program. But it's really, we cover the cloud computing, the leadership, the business, the emotional intelligence, the presentations, the executive communications, the writing skills, the business acumen skills, even salary negotiation skills. Everything we need to do to help you get your first cloud architect job. Now, Chris from my team will pop a link to that course. Plus, I think my team told me we're doing a special 35% Black Friday discount, something we would never do, but I'm all excited about doing it so we can give it to as many people as possible to help as many people get cloud architect hired. So Chris from my team will post a link to the training program, and he also will post a link to the coupon code unless one's already been in there. And at this point, who has questions for me? Because I love answering questions. And if you're on YouTube and you want to pop into Zoom to ask a question, you can. If you ask a question, that's okay too. And a chat window will get to you as well. We'll answer it in either case. Chris from my team is going to be managing the questions coming to me that are coming in from Zoom as well as YouTube. So I'll be addressing them in that order. So I will get to everyone, I promise. Or unless we run out of time in 90 minutes. Chris, do you want to bring in the first question, or does anybody have any questions? Looks like the first question that I see, well, I see a question on Zoom. So I'm going to answer the first one that I see on Zoom, which is, hi, Mike, I enrolled for the course, but wanted to ask you, the weekly sessions, are they 1 hour or more? Yes, they're more than 1 hour. Absolutely. They're typically at least 3 hours. And they're recorded, so you can go back and look at some if you need. This next question that I see is coming from Malad. And he says, apart from the SA Professional Certificate, making contents about AWS and publishing on LinkedIn can take the attraction of HRs and recruiting managers. Absolutely, Malad. So, you know, I know you have access to the training, but inside of that training, you definitely should be doing things. In fact, a lot of my students, we co-author blogs with them. And the reason we co-author blogs on AWS or other technologies with students whenever we can is because building your brand is absolutely critical to getting hired. It is so essential. Absolutely. And how do you build your brand? You show the world you're great. How did I build my brand? In my years, I used to speak at a lot of conferences. In fact, I actually wrote a paper 20 years ago and it built my career. It was on an intro to IP multicast. And literally speaking, that paper is actually being used by the company's competitors 20 years later and their support teams to troubleshoot IP multicast networks because it was a good paper. And you know what? When I was at Cisco, I wrote a paper called Medical Grade Network, how to travel 300,000 miles in 1 year, and got promoted 3 times from it. So Malad, going out there after you've got good credentials and writing quality content. Again, why? It shows that you're not just a tech. You're a leader. You can write executive content, make the content really readable, executive summary format, show how your content is exceptional, show how it doesn't look like that hard to read engineer content, how it's very simple and elegant content, how it feels simple. Yeah, you do that, it will definitely.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So we're having some technical difficulties over here in St. Petersburg, but we're we got Sebastian and Zoom who
Okay.
has their hand raised, so I'm going to bring Sebastian off mute.
Excellent.
All right.
Hi, Sebastian.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Wonderful. And yourself?
Pretty good, man. It's a good little Monday morning, just getting started out here in Florida.
Where in Florida?
Miami.
No,
Kendall specifically.
I know Kendall real well. Gotcha.
Yes, sir. But I called in and asked a question like a week or two ago.
Okay.
Just referring to like my own situation and where I'm at. So pretty much just a quick little description of where I'm at. So I have zero tech experience, and I'm a dentist by trade, but I want to move into tech.
Okay.
And specifically, what I want to do is become a cloud architect, work as a cloud architect for a couple of years, and then start my own cloud consulting business.
Okay.
Like I said, I have zero tech experience, but I've been looking a lot at your programs, and I just wanted to know, what do you think would be the time frame for me starting to me getting hired as a cloud architect?
Yeah.
Also, as a reference, I have like 4 to 8 hours a day, every day that I can study and work and train to become a cloud architect. So.
Okay.
I just wanted to know what you think about my situation.
So, there's two sides. Normally, I would say that it would take you 8 months to go from working in healthcare to being cloud architect hired. And for the average person, I would say that's there. Now, you're a medical person like me, and we medical people were forced to read a lot in our lives. So we typically read very quickly. We also typically are very good at sitting somewhere for 4 hours at a time in a position and actually learning and being able to do it and still remembering things. I will tell you, Sebastian, that I went from practicing internal medicine to hired with my first job within about 2 to 3 months. Now, I will also say that I put in about 8 to 10 hours a day, 7 days a week into it. And then I will also tell you that within 6 months, I not only was earning more money in tech than I did in healthcare, that I was already promoted to the lead architect of my team. And that was within 6 months of the time that I saw my first the time that I touched my first router, realistically speaking, inside of a company. So that was pretty fast. So I still like to say 8 months because I like to underpromise and overdeliver. Although, if you put that concept of literally putting in there at 8 hours a day, you might get through in 4 months. But I like to say 8 months because it's much better to overpromise than underdeliver.
Definitely, yeah. And that's why I'm a big fan of yours, because I can really tell that you know what you're talking about. There's a lot of people in the space that say, oh, 2 months, just get your Amazon Web Services certificate and you'll be ready to get hired, and that's not the case.
It's not the case.
Yeah.
I'd say the certified solution architect professional is 8 to 10% of what's necessary. The knowledge of the network and the data center, that gets plus that and the cloud, that's 50%, and the rest of it is there. Now, you'll have an easier time with the emotional intelligence piece and the empathy piece because you're already trained in it. So, that makes life a lot easier for we medical people. We're used to delivering bad news, which I wish we didn't have to do. But we're also really good at asking people questions. What brought you in today? What makes it better? What makes it worse? All those PQRST kind of things that we ask. So by being really good at that and being able to ask questions, things that other people could never ask without offending people, that is really helpful when you're asking clients about the mistakes they made and how to fix them.
Yeah. One last quick question.
Sure.
So you mentioned also that it's really good to have business acumen.
Yes.
So is there anything in specific that you would recommend? Taking certain courses online, or just like general business courses?
So I go very heavy into business. We go very heavy into business acumen in our program. But if you are not in our program, realistically speaking, you're going to have to learn ROI modeling, because you're just going to have to. You're going to have to learn to be CXO relevant. And I got to tell you, I spent about $10,000 in training to learn how to become CXO relevant. And realistically speaking, what matters to the CEO versus the CIO versus the CTO versus the CFO, and how to present to them. That is absolutely critical. You're going to have to get real good at communicating to the weird 3 personality types of your executives, which is your intuitive like me, which is I've got a vision and a plan, but you show numbers at me and it spooks the living daylights out of me, versus the analytical type like my chief operating officer, that he thrives in a world where he can look at numbers and he can do analytics and he can do data. And he helps me every single day because he can make sense of the numbers, versus the functional types, which are process oriented. And I got to tell you, if you get that wrong, the executives won't hear a word you're saying. So you've got to get good at that. That is really, really critical. The neuro-linguistic programming piece I like a little bit as well, to try and figure out whether people are visual, auditory, kinesthetic, how to establish rapport. I'd say there's that. Knowledge of marketing, definitely good. But realistically, Sebastian, the business acumen piece we're talking about is reading a financial statement. You got to be able to do that. But think of it this way: if I came into your organization right now and met with you and said, let's talk about how we can make you make more money in your practice, I'd come there. I'd have to know a couple things. I'd have to know about marketing. I'd have to know about sales. I'd also have to know about the healthcare industry. I'd have to know about the healthcare industry laws, regulations, rules. I'd have to know about the insurances that exist in both medicine and dentistry, because there's a crossover in certain things in certain kinds and locations. And I would have to know enough about the dentistry business. I would have to know how many hygienists can a dentist supervise. I would have to know all about that. Only then could I walk into your business and even make some recommendations. So depending upon the industry you're in, that's what I mean by the business acumen.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike.
You're welcome. I'm so happy you asked the question.
Thanks.
Looks like Manoj has the next question. At least I think. Is that the case, Chris?
Not sure. Yes, it
Okay.
looks like it.
So hi, Manoj. If Manoj, I've known people with both versions of that name. Could you come off mute? Ask any questions you like.
Hi, Michael. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Manoj. I'm coming in from Toronto, and my question is something similar that we had earlier, but with a different twist in terms of we have different career experiences. So, Michael, I have been working in digital marketing and digital communications and strategy and corporate communications and stakeholder communications for 10 years now.
Excellent.
And in my last assignment, which I worked for like 6 years in my previous company, I was working at the intersection of legal and tech. So for 6 years, I was ghostwriting blog papers and industry reports and white papers with engineers and lawyers in my company about a lot of various aspects of like tech and its application in automotive or IoT or Kubernetes or containerization and all that stuff. And I was the part of the core team which led the digital transformation of my company from a communication perspective. When we rolled out the cloud and Azure in the company and rolling out other solutions. And in fact, I was trained on SharePoint to take care of the tech part of customer experience, which included internal and external stakeholders. So I have a fair bit of understanding. And then, the more time you spend closer to the tech and not being the core tech, the bug really, bites you, it pulls you in. It's such an interesting field and it's such a consuming field that it gets your attention. So I was wondering, like, I'm taking a break right now, and I wanted to transition into a full-time tech career, and especially into cloud tech.
Okay.
So, and there would be, I'm sure there would be other people like me who are coming from, completely non-tech background, but like different kind of, who have exposure in corporate strategy or dealing with stakeholders or C-suite executives and stuff like that. So we do bring in some kind of advantage, which I could gather from your, gather from the session here. But I'm still not confident, like in terms of what could be my path into a knowledge building and skill building, and how could I still pitch my experience in a way that it becomes a complementary piece to my profile rather than a heavy anchor that drags me down due to lack of tech education or hardcore tech experience.
Yeah, so it's the funny thing. If your resume is right and your certifications are right and your communication skills are right, and all these things are correct, and the competency's there, when you get in front of that hiring manager and you communicate, it's very clear in about 3 seconds whether you're capable or not. I mean, it's that fast. So the reality is, I mean, which do you want? The 14-year-old that hacked into the Pentagon, or the 50-year-old that's been doing security for 30 years that can't figure out how to secure an environment? I know it sounds crazy, but I've interviewed 5,000 people. I found, of the last 5,000 interviews that I did, I found 10 competent people. 10 out of 5,000 interviews. It is really that hard. I mean, it is so hard. Here's what an interview is like from the interviewer perspective. Tell me about yourself. And the person rambles for 30 seconds, 30, 40, 50, 60 seconds, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and you can't even figure it out. When all they need to say is, I'm Mike. I'm highly energetic. I'm Mike. If they ask you, tell me about yourself, I might say, I'm Mike. I've been working in tech for 25 years. I love technology. I'm hardworking. I'm highly motivated. I've got experience closing billion-dollar deals, experience leading large teams, and experience delighting customers. It's got to be fast. But people will go on for hours, and that's the first question. And as soon as that happens, the interview's over. So it's not really an issue if you're competent. So the key is really get you skilled, and then get your paperwork in order, and then get you to use one of our recruiters to get you in front of the hiring manager. And once they see someone that's good, it's like unbelievable. I'm going to tell you, I've interviewed for 5 companies and I've been hired by all 5. If I told you that I was hired on the spot by the majority of them, that the slowest hire for me was actually Cisco, and it took 2 days to hire me. That was the slowest time. Why is it? Because they wouldn't let me leave the room without hiring me, because they knew I would have had a job offer within 24 hours. And in fact, every time I've interviewed, they said, are you interviewing anywhere else? And I'd say, yes. They'd say, how's it going? And I'd say, interviews are going well, but I'm here to speak with you today. And they'd say, and before I would leave, I would have an offer. So it's that, and that even happened when I had less than a year of experience. So the thing that matters most is the competency is number one. You've got to be able to do that job. And I got to tell you, it is so easy to spot people that can't. So first, the ability to do the job, and then when you can do the job and you're likable and emotionally intelligent and you can communicate, you're there. But your experience is valid. You've been writing marketing collateral for all this time. You've been doing technical writing. 50% of what we do as architects is speak and write about tech. 50%. Literally speaking, I'm not joking, 50%. You've already been doing it. You're working with people across departments. You have to do consulting to ghostwrite papers. You've got to ask a whole lot of questions to be able to get the inputs to even write it. Otherwise, without the right questions, the inputs are wrong. And if the inputs are wrong, your paper is wrong. So it's the same thing. So no, I don't think you'd have a hard time. I think it would be the same thing as Sebastian. It's about 8 months for a non-technical person to do that. Having said that, when people actually don't have a full-time job, they can do it quicker. But again, I overpromise and underdeliver. But yes, you can easily do it. I did it. I've got students that do it all the time, changing careers. It's never a problem.
Yeah, so it's like I spent so much time writing stuff and figuring out stuff and building strategy and presentations for other people. I feel like, why not build some tactic skills of my own self? And I could, like this Sebastian mentioned, that like after some rigorous years of experience, I could get into my own consulting, and let's see where sky's the limit after that.
It is, but I'm going to tell you, there's 2 ways you can take your cloud architect career. There's the way that gives you the maximum salary and advantage, and there's the other way. And it's easy to fall into the other way trap, which is what most people do. You can become an architect and become really, really strong on the tech. And for people that love the tech, I strongly, strongly encourage that. That person becomes something called the technical solution architect versus a solution architect. And that person's got great technical abilities. They also have great hands-on skills. And that person's a cross between an architect and an engineer. And that person will do well, but that person's salary is going to top out around $180,000 to $200,000 a year, because that's the maximum you can do on the tech side. Now, you can be a less technical architect and focus more on the business piece, and focus more on the transformation piece, and focus more on the leadership piece, and earn $300,000 to $400,000 and have a much greater career progression. And either or is okay. They're both extremely good places, and they're both very good sets of jobs. You just got to find out where you prefer. I'm happier on the business architect, enterprise architect side of the world, and I like it better. Some of my students I push towards the technical architect side, but it's building the right career development plan for them, because we all have what we love, but the key is you've got to be good. So, you know, whether you're a dentist, whether you're an internal medicine provider like me, whether you're a cloud architect, you just have to build a brand. And here's what I mean by that. If my brand is, and I'll tell you where I made most of my earnings. I was an enterprise architect for the healthcare industry. Why? I can practice medicine, so I know all about medicine. And then I took that level of expertise and I married that through network architecture. We've got a dentist on here, a dentist that would focus on healthcare and technology. That person's career is a rocket ship because they've got industry-specific knowledge. So that's one place where you can boost your career. Another way where you can boost your career is you become an expert on security, or you become an expert in the financial industry, or anything. The key is about transformation, Manoj. So if you've been doing it, if you've been doing what you're doing now, which is digital marketing, and the whole point of digital marketing is to help, increase brand recognition, increase awareness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're running a digital marketing campaign when you're getting hired too. It's the same thing. I run digital marketing campaigns periodically for my students, effectively, by co-authoring things with them and hitting an email list of, tens of thousands of people on it and posting things to social media for my students. So yeah, absolutely, digital marketing campaign.
Mike,
Yeah.
So we've got some questions that we've been answering in the chat box because they were simple, but I also wanted you to address them as well.
Sure.
So I'm going to read them back to back because they all flow into each other.
Okay.
So Rahul asked, never mind. That was a current student. That's okay, that one. Okay, Mohammed asked, what will we need to assist the course? What is needed hardware-wise? Will we need to pay cloud services from a cloud provider?
No.
And then a follow-up was about the schedules, like the time of the classes and the cost. So.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. Why don't you address the cost? Because I know that
Yeah.
you, because I try to stay out of the cost. I know you when the department you run takes care of that. So you want to discuss the current cost, and then I'll address the rest. Okay, Chris seemed to disappear. So I'll read what he wrote in the box. Okay, so the question is, students don't need anything for our course other than a computer with internet access. So web browser and internet access, because all the work is done on our servers. Nobody needs to pay anything else to a cloud provider. We do recommend that at some point through the class, people do a couple of labs on a cloud provider, but they're all free. So there's nothing ever to really purchase by any stretch of the imagination. So nope, all you need to do is have a computer with internet access. All the labs are done on our servers. So there's realistically
recording stopped.
There's nothing that's necessary to purchase. So the course is normally $9.99. Do you know how we came up with this pricing? I got to tell you, the average cloud architect earns about $600 a day. A good cloud architect earns $1,200 a day or more. So that's average. If we charge $1,000 for our course at normal pricing, then basically we're about 1 day or a day and a half's pay for giving someone a very good career. So, we figure that's very, very, very inexpensive with an extremely good return on investment capital for our clients, especially because we don't just do tech training. We do emotional intelligence training, leadership training, soft skills training, et cetera, et cetera. The data is extremely good, and you can go research it yourself. Soft skills training on average raises somebody's salary about 30%, which for the average cloud architect is about $50,000. Emotional intelligence training on average raises someone's salary about $30,000 a year. So realistically speaking, we're dealing with about an additional $80,000 a year that the average person should hopefully benefit from training emotional intelligence, communication skills, soft skills so extensively. So there's that. But right now, I know the team is running a 35% Black Friday sale. So 1,000 minus 35% should be, what's the word I'm looking for? $650. So the current pricing would be $650. So make sure I searched it. So I hope I answered that question. I think Chris is here, but I'm not sure if he was able to get back on or back off. So Chris, are you here? And are there any other questions you want to tell me about? Otherwise, I will start scrolling through the questions. Okay, let me see if I see any questions in the chat box. And then after the chat box, I will go over to YouTube. Okay. Okay, there's no more questions. So let's go to the YouTube questions that are here. So let's see. Okay, Charles asked, how do you manage the fact that most cloud architect jobs places to more engineering or DevOps? Charles, that's a great question. Here's what we do. We actually use recruiters, and we don't use the HR job descriptions. See, here's the thing, Charles. HR is making these ridiculous job descriptions that include everything other than what happens. And then the hiring managers get people that know everything other than the skill of the actual architect. And then what happens? The hiring managers don't hire anybody. And then they ultimately reach out to a recruiter that has it. So what I suggest is, if you actually know the company, ask somebody in that company what an actual architect does, and you'll find out they're not doing engineering or DevOps. So ideally go through a recruiter like we do, Charles, or if you don't have a recruiter, make sure you have the ability to ask people that work there, reach out to people, find out what they post, find out what they do. You've got to actually know what goes on, because architects do not do DevOps. That's not anything that we do by any stretch of the imagination. Friday, I see a hand raised. Friday, I see a hand raised. You're more than welcome to come off mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Friday.
Hey, Mike, thanks for hosting this. I'm really excited to ask you some questions via voice. This is a lot of fun.
That's why I'm doing it. Faith, real quick. Let me just answer one quick question in the chat box from Faith while I'm answering yours. Faith, the course is 16 weeks for technology professionals and about 32 weeks for people that have never worked in tech before, but we let you stay in the program for a year because we know that you're going to get hired, and we keep you until you get hired for 1 year. So Friday, let me get back to your question now. Friday?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well.
Yeah, so a lot of your YouTube videos, you celebrate some certifications, particularly the CCNP.
Yes.
I just did some research on the CCNP, and I know there's like different specializations that you can get after like the core exam. I wanted to learn what you'd recommend for as a specialization, what you advise your students, which ones to go for that would be most relevant for the enterprise architect position, kind of more of a business role. That's what I'd be interested in, but in terms of what CCNP specialization would be most relevant for the enterprise architect.
Yeah, for enterprise architect or for cloud architect? Because they're different.
That would be great if you could maybe describe the difference between the two. And yeah.
And I will. So the enterprise. So let's walk through the architects. Let's go from engineering to architecture in terms of salary and in terms of focus. At the extreme lowest salary on the right, we're going to have the cloud engineer, and they're going to be the most technical person, and their salary is going to be the lowest, but they're going to be the most technical. And without them, we have nothing. The next level up in terms of salary is what's going to be called the technical solution architect. And what that really is, it's an incredibly good cloud engineer that you don't know what to do with them. They typically don't have the executive presence, emotional intelligence, leadership skills of an architect, but you want to pay them more than an engineer. So you make them a technical solution architect. Now, the next level above that would be a solution architect. And the solution architect becomes kind of this hybrid business/architect, business/technical position. And the solution architect is someone that works for AWS or Azure or Google and designs customer solutions with only a single cloud. Now, the reality is there is no such thing as a customer with a single cloud. So the solution architect world really is kind of not where you want to be. The next focus above that would be the cloud architect. The cloud architect does the same job as the solution architect, but the cloud architect does it with the network, the data center technologies, and across multiple cloud providers. So because of that, you've got a higher salary because you've got more value that you can give the organization. Now you go one level up and you become 70% business, 30% technical, and then you're an enterprise architect. And an enterprise architect is not a technical person at all. They've been around long in technology, so the enterprise architect knows what the servers do and the load balancers do and the security, but they're not technically strong at all, but they are super leadership strong. So, first, you typically become a cloud architect or a solutions architect, and then after a couple of years experience, you shift your focus to leadership training, and then you become an enterprise architect. And then the next kind of architect that you can do above that is actually the business architect, and I've done that. And the business architect role is where you're changing business processes and technology. So all architects are about transforming your customer's business. But the enterprise architecture is more on the leadership side. So regarding the cloud architect, the reason I like the CCNP is the CCNP is where people start to know networking. So what is the cloud? It's a network in a data center that needs to be virtualized. And because it's a network in a data center that needs to be virtualized, you can't do it without knowing networking. So I like the CCNP. So the CCNP enterprise is good, and the CCNP data center is typically very good as well. Why? The CCNP data center is a cloud effectively data center design course, and the CCNP enterprise has a lot of routing. So either one of those are good. But to go from that cloud architect to an enterprise architect, it's going to be a lot more leadership skills, a lot more business. It's going to be all business training, not technical training after the cloud architect. Friday.
Thank you so much for that question. I have another one, but should I call in the queue or should I go ahead and ask?
You can ask your question.
I had another question about the program itself in terms of like timing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, in terms of timing. So I actually recently started a job, and I definitely wouldn't want to start something and then and kind of betting on the success of your program, receive an additional offer within a few months' time. I have a non-tech background, so it'd probably take me on the other higher end in terms of time. But I want to advise maybe I should delay attending your program because you mentioned it being kind of for the length of 1 year. Considering that I've started a job that I'd like to stay in for about 1 year, if that makes sense. So would you recommend delaying going into your program, or would you allow, stragglers to stay in for the sake of perhaps being a little bit more patient with the program? I wonder your thoughts on that.
I'd rather be patient in the program because, a lot of the skills that we take some time to develop. So, I don't have an issue with you being in the program for a year. We don't charge more. We just want you to get to your goals.
Gotcha. So there's not like a hard kick out after 365 days. No. Oh, okay, gotcha. I thought it was like, get out after 365 days. Okay.
No, I mean, we say a year because otherwise we'll have people that are just going to take free training for the next 100 years and be in our classes. But if somebody's got a unique circumstance where they need to stay an extra month or two to get hired, I don't care. It's not an issue for us.
And then actually one last question I had was about my own personal experience. I have some corporate retail experience, and I wanted to know if, coming from a non-tech background, can that corporate retail experience be leveraged to work for, say, a retailer or Amazon in the absence of my technical background that I would develop in your program, or would that be a little bit too optimistic to consider my corporate retail experience?
So if you've worked on the corporate side and you're used to the levers of sales, and you're used to the marketing levels, and you're used to the inventory control systems and things like that, that is a huge asset. That's kind of like me being the medical professional that's dealing with cloud. So yes, absolutely. The key to become great and have a great career is to do one of two things. Have a technology area focus, such as security, or have an industry vertical focus, such as healthcare, banking, retail. In fact, when I worked at Cisco, and I almost took a leadership role at another one of the major cloud companies, they wanted me to head up one of the industry verticals. So yes, being expert on an industry will dramatically increase your salary, earnings, and opportunities.
Okay. And one final quick question I have kind of long-term dreams, aspirations I'm currently in the States, but I have aspirations to work on the continent of Africa. And I really enjoy hearing that your program, a lot of students are on the continent. And so it seems to me this would be a great career to develop to one day achieve that dream of moving, migrating, what have you. I would love to know if you could shoot from the hip and talk about how you would advise someone like me who's kind of starting out, would like to have a global, international career. What industry, what vertical, what specialization would be most relevant to do business on the continent?
So, it's interesting. I do a lot of work in Africa, like a lot of it. In fact, on Sunday for free, I'm going to go speak to a group of Cameroonians that are getting ready to pass their Certified Solution Architect Associate exam. And I just do it to help out periodically. And, having said all of that, I've got over 100 Nigerian students, and I've got 50 Cameroonian students, and I've got a lot of students from Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Tanzania, a lot from South Africa, Benin, Gabon, and I'm missing a lot of really cool countries for which I have students in Africa. What I would say is build your brand. Because I've worked from I've worked from the family village in Greece, and no one knew wiser. So I would say is yes, the answer is you can go work, whether in any part of the world when you're good, get known, get good, build your brand. Like Zelma Somali, one of my students who's on this call right now, but I've got students from all over the world, and I think it's great. I really think that Africa is going to be a place for the future, and here's the reason why. We've got a great resignation going on in America where people are saying, I don't want to work. We've got low costs in Africa, and we've got available technology there. And I got to tell you, from the interest that I see in the number of technology professionals I speak to across Africa, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen so many people focus towards this cloud computing thing. And it makes sense because, traditional data centers, you got to buy all the stuff ahead of time. With the cloud, you don't need to buy anything ahead of time, and the cloud providers pretty much give you almost a year of really discounted services. So Friday, I think, the opportunity to do something in Africa at some point, I think is fantastic. But I would prefer to get a year or two's worth of experience. It'll be easier. I have helped people find jobs in Lagos, Nigeria, for example, and love working with a population I do, but it's going to be easier if you have experience. So I'd say if you're here in the US, be in the US for a little while. And then the ability to go outside the US, sure, but I have students in Africa, and they're going to get hired too in international companies, definitely.
Gotcha. Awesome. That's the last of my questions. So again, Mike, thanks so much for this call. I really appreciate what you do. Thank you.
You got it, and you're welcome. Let me address Raul's question. He asked if the price is $650 for the Solution Architect Associate. Raul, the Solution Architect Associate is 100% free. You can get it on YouTube, as well as our AWS Advanced Networking. So Robert, it's completely free for the Certified Solution Architect Associate. And guess what? Certified Solution Architect Professional, if you want that, that's free too. Robert, what we're talking about here is a comprehensive program to take you from wherever you're at, to teach you how to become a cloud architect and get you hired, and teach you all the skills necessary to become employed and get you hired in the end of the program. That's what we're talking. We're talking about a program that's going to teach cloud computing. There's nobody that's going to get hired just by passing a Certified Solution Architect Associate and Professional exam without knowledge of the cloud, without knowledge about system design, without knowledge about how to solve customer business problems, without the necessary business acumen to solve things. So no, Robert, it's not for a Certified Solution Architect course. You can have that completely free. It's completely free on our website. It's completely free in YouTube. That's completely free in a lot of places. We've got a free book on passing the Certified Solution Architect Associate exam, and the professional exam. We're producing a free book, which will be released very soon, any day now. So no, it has nothing to do with passing a Certified Solution Architect Associate. It's about how to build a cloud computing career. Robert, I hope I answered your question, and you're more than welcome to come off mute.
So I'm back for just a second. Apparently, Spectrum Internet is not the best right now. There's a few questions from 2B's production and the YouTube chat that are back to back.
Okay. And then
I'm not sure if you addressed them.
I have not. So let me make sure I got that. So one thing I will say is Mohammed Nasser asked if DevOps skills are required to be a cloud architect. I've never learned DevOps, and I'm also going to tell you this, Mohammed Nasser. If someone becomes a cloud architect and they start learning DevOps and they start learning SysOps and learning all these other things, what happens is they learn every other skill other than architecture. And I got to tell you, there's no shortage of people that desire cloud architect jobs that know DevOps. The problem is we can't hire them because DevOps is, automation of software release cycles and automation of things, and it has nothing to do with system design. So don't study DevOps, Mohammed, if you want to be a cloud architect. Study cloud architecture. So, okay, so the question is from 2B's production. Hi, Mike, Asif here. I'm a non-IT background person. You're trying to switch from accounting to cloud. Good. You spent almost 7 months to study and pass the Solutions Architect Associate. Okay, good. Now you're trying to get in the cloud computing field as an architect. Please help you get on the right path. Please suggest resume-wise on my resume what would What would be the only AWS certification? But for job, they ask for Python. So again, 2B's production. This is going to be really hard to do on your own because you're going to have a lot of contacts with a lot of recruiters and a lot of organizations to be able to know what they actually want. So, Asif, you've got two options if you want to get hired as a cloud architect. Option one is you train with us. Option two is if you're not going to train with us, realize that it's going to be a lot more than just resume-wise. Realize, upgrade that certified solution architect to a certified solution architect professional. Then pick a subject that you want to master. Maybe it's networking, maybe it's security, maybe it's databases, and then get an industry relevant professional certification there. Then, Asif, you've got to learn the network and the data center, and that means routing and routing protocols. It means BGP, it means OSPF, it means intermediate systems to intermediate systems. It means the knowledge of software-defined networking. It means the knowledge of routing and routing protocols. It means the knowledge of IP addressing and route summarization and route aggregation. It means NAT, it means QoS, it means switching, it means spanning tree, it means rapid spanning tree, literally all of that. And then it means learning servers, server virtualizations, containers, firewalls, identity and access management systems, AAA authentication systems, same kind of concept. Learning block object file storage in depth, so you can have like a three-day conversation with somebody about their storage. And then learning the business acumen, learning the communication skills. So it's not a resume thing. There's actually a video that I made, 2B's production on our channel about how to make a resume. But the resume only works when you've got that underlying competency. So make sure you get that competency, 2B's production. And when you have the right resume and you go on there and it's perfect, they don't ask you for Python and all these other things. In fact, I have to, for most of my students, they're like, Mike, every time I go on a resume, they ask me about programming, they ask me about scripting, and I say, take all this nonsense off of your resume. Get rid of your developer certifications. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Show the business transformation. And then they immediately get hired and nobody asks them about coding. So if you make a technical resume, you're going to get asked on your technical things. If you make an architect resume, which is half business, half technical, you don't have these problems. So that's what you realistically need to do. If you want to, so that's my advice for you. Either train with us or basically do that on your own, but it's going to take that. It's not just going to be get a certified solution architect professional when it's done. It's going to take all those other things to B's production. Sean Trainer on YouTube. How do we approach new joiners in the Cloud Architect program? Here's what we do. Twice per week, we do live architecture training. And see, the thing, Sam, is the way I design an architecture on a Monday versus a Tuesday versus 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years from now, it's going to be 90% the same. So we take students in at any time, and they join our architecture classes. Now, the new students will be lost for 2 to 4 weeks in the course, not in just those live classes. And inside of these classes, what happens is I've got students of all kinds of experience. So when we do live architecture training in class, the more senior students take a bigger part of the load. And then they get hired, and then the more junior students move up through the ranks, and then they take more of the load. So the live classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays are mentored. And because they're mentored, these 2 3-hour classes, which are Tuesday from 9 to noon Eastern Standard Time in the US, and Fridays from 12 to 3, what ultimately happens, we get everybody in these training programs, everybody gets there together, and everybody works together. So the new students do two things. They join the architecture classes, which is a group, and then the work and the homework and the assignments and the things that the students do on their own is self-paced. So my students that start today and their students that start today will immediately start the self-paced portion of the training today, and will be rolled into the next architecture class tomorrow. So realistically speaking, they'll be rolled into the next class tomorrow, and then they'll attend class tomorrow, and my students will do homework on their own between tomorrow and the Friday class, which normally would be on Friday. This week we won't because it's a holiday, and then they'll come back the next Tuesday. So that's how we do that, Sean Trainer, and I'm happy to answer any more questions in any more depth. Now VNHG, the cloud architect is a salaried position, or you could do it contract. If you're a good cloud architect and you do it hourly, you're billing yourself out for about $200 an hour working for somebody else. If you're a really good cloud architect with a lot of experience, you can bill $400 to $600 an hour for your services. Now, cloud architect salary, average salary in the US is about $156,000, but a cloud architect that focuses on business acumen, industry acumen can easily earn $300,000 to $400,000 a year. If you're a good cloud architect, you will really get $300,000 a year job offers, 2 to 5 every single day without looking for them. Once you've got a resume that's got some business acumen and leadership. So again, what gets you paid more on these positions is not more tech. You have to have a minimum level of tech, but it's the business. It's the business. So how do you separate yourselves? What makes you a different cloud architect? It's the business piece, the leadership piece. How do you transform your customers? That's how you become an architect. That's your value, and that's why they're willing to pay you so much. We are not coders. We are not developers. We are not configurers. We are not hands-on at all. I have never written a script in my life. I don't know how to code. I don't know a single cloud architect that ever does. In fact, the hardest people to get these jobs, the easiest people are the network and the data center people, which have zero coding experience. When I've got my software people, I've got to go back and start with the network and the data center, because the cloud's a network and a data center. So I want to make sure we get this. So the job itself is a leadership job. It is a business job with technical inside there. So hope I answered your question there. The next question is from Mohammed Nasser. Being a cloud architect, will it make you a developer? No. Cloud architect is, I don't know if it's the highest, because there's lots of other jobs that pay even more than cloud architect, like an enterprise architect or a business architect, but the cloud architect is right up there. But getting to the enterprise architect jobs without being a network architect or a cloud architect first would be near impossible. So it is really great. Cloud developers can do development. The same development they could in the data center. They're going to do the same thing. It's just on a cloud. But it doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter if I'm on my Threadripper Pro workstation right now or I'm on a Xeon workstation. It's the same workload. It's the same thing. Nothing changes. So being a cloud architect doesn't make you a cloud developer. Architects don't code. They don't configure. They don't do any development. So what makes somebody a cloud developer is learning development and learning cloud. Being a cloud architect is learning how to take an organization's systems, being able to take an organization's business problems, being able to take an organization and figure out how to improve that business through the use of cloud-based and non-cloud-based technologies. And at the enterprise architecture role, it becomes more about all the other non-technology things. So the further you move up the link, then you're there. Okay, so the next question is, let me get to Albert Tagada. Hey, Mike, you're currently in the military now, and you're getting out in a couple of months. Excellent. You're doing your master's in cybersecurity. Excellent, but want to focus on cloud security. Albert, let me tell you exactly what kind of a great position you're going to be in. Coming out of the military for security looks really good and really strong, because guess what? You've been doing security. So what will help you? Get a CISSP or CCSP. I've done a lot of fancy degrees. The industry doesn't really look at the degrees. They look at the degrees for your professionalism, which can boost your architecture career, but they don't assume we get any knowledge about our fields from our degrees. So I would say get yourself a CISSP or a CEH. Now, Albert, coming out of the military, here's why organizations are going to like you. You have the ability to take direction and get the job done. And most military people are very mentally tough. They don't quit until the job is done. Organizations love this. Organizations love team players. Who's better team players in the military? Nobody, other than maybe pro athletes, and they're about the same. So the team player, the ability to take direction, the attitude is pretty good. You typically ask a military person, I need this done. They say, when? It's very fast, and they get it done, and they don't quit until the job done. So you're there. So two things that I would recommend. One, and I'm actually, and I work with this population a lot. One is the leadership skills. In military, command and control is great. You do this. You do this. You over here. You're on Overwatch. You're on Breach. You're on this. It works, but that doesn't work in real life except in an emergency crisis. So what I would say is focus on your leadership changes. Focus on the civilian world, but basically still stay you. People like it. I'll give you a great example, Albert. There was a Marine that wrote a LinkedIn post. And what it said on the LinkedIn post, it was really cool. It said, I am retiring from the Marine Corps and I am looking to work hard for someone. I'm a computer professional with a great attitude and motivation. I would like to go work for you and help you. I saw this, Albert. I was running a boot camp that week and it was one of my paid boot camps, and I had 2 slots left over in the boot camp. It was a long time ago, and I called the Marine up on the phone. He had his phone number listed in LinkedIn, and I called him and I said, I saw your post and I love it. And he says, thank you, sir. And I said, I think you need a little bit better of a background. And I said, and I'd like to help you. I said, that post was so good. It was so inspiring. I'm having a boot camp. Would you like to come next week completely for free? And you know what? He said, yes. He took my class. At the end of the week, we had an interview, 2 days of interview prep. A week later, he got his first cloud engineering job, and he only was with us for a week. The key was he had that right attitude. He made this post. I'm from the Marine Corps, and I'm here to help you. Leverage those superpowers, leverage that teamwork, and you'll be in a really, really great position. So let me try and make sure. It's hard to see all the questions and where they're coming from. So let me try and make sure I'm looking for these things. The crowd. So Sean Trainer, no instructions. Okay, so the next question came from someone named No Instructions. Hi, Mike, it's Dorian, the guy you spoke with on Saturday with the psych background. I remember speaking with you, Dorian. How does your psych experience help you when interviewing? It helped you in a lot of ways. Well, for one reason, working in psych, we get really good at reading people's body language. When is someone happy? When is someone not? So you'll be able to read the audience, and you'll be able to determine when it's time to speak and when it's time to stop. So right then and there, there's that. Now, also, when you work in psychology, you understand things. You become more emotionally intelligent. You'll be able to ask questions without offending. So, Dorian, when you've got that kind of a background to ask questions, you can ask questions early in the interview to help you establish rapport. You can ask questions to get better information, ask the questions better. So just by being able to communicate better, you're in a much, much, much better position to go win on that interview. So anytime you've got a communications background, anytime you've got some psychology or sociology background, it puts you in a position to be able to better communicate. What are the things we do as architects? We design, we present, and we sell. And those of us that know a lot about psychology know how to communicate better to people and make sure they're more likely to understand it. So that is a huge, huge, huge asset for us there. So your psych background is fantastic. It's going to help on the communication skills. It's going to help on the emotional intelligence skills and the presentation skills. So I love that background for you. Let's look for the next question. From Kerry Kundra, you get the impression that cloud architecture jobs could be best done as freelance or consultancies. Freelance is going to be a little rough. Freelance, if you're like me, if you've got 25 years experience and the whole world knows you, freelance is great. Now, all cloud architecture work is consultancy work. So whether you work for a big four consulting company like a Bearing Point or an Accenture, or whether you're working for an Amazon or a Cisco, as a cloud architect, it's all consulting work. And what do I mean by consulting work? You start with a customer, you ask them about their business, and you create a solution for them. That's consulting, 100% consulting. So yes, it is consulting, but it's going to be consulting no matter where you're at. If you're going to be consulting at a cloud provider, it'll be consulting. If you're at a telco, it'll be consulting. If you're a managed service provider, it's consulting. And guess what? If you work into a big company like a global retailer that needs a cloud architect, you're still going to be consulting the executives in the organization to improve their business through technology. So yes, you are right. This is a consulting background. Let's make sure I'm going through these questions.
So there's a couple of questions from Sani. I think he actually jumped over here onto Zoom.
Oh,
but it looks like he left. So he may still be on YouTube. But
okay.
maybe if you scroll up far enough, you'll see him.
I will. Okay, sounds good. Okay, Sani, I see Sani periodically. Oh, Sani, do I recommend the solutions architect professional before the other expert or vice versa? Sani, I recommend getting one of the two and not both. The thing is, Sani, for me, it's about learning the cloud, not learning any cloud provider. So if I need a NoSQL database, whether it's Cloud Bigtable or DynamoDB, it's a NoSQL database. But I could also choose from Apache Cassandra, MongoDB, et cetera, et cetera. I've got lots of options. So, when you learn the actual tech, the server virtualization, the Kubernetes container, the firewall, the IDS, IPS system, NFS, server message block, Active Directory. When you know that, it's identical when you're on AWS or Azure or Google. So Sandy, my recommendation is, especially if you go back and can hear this, learn one cloud, but learn it great. Pick an area of specialty and learn it great. And then don't waste your time getting certified in a second cloud provider. Spend your time becoming great at the business side, the communication side, the legal side, the consulting, the presentation. Focus on the stuff that builds your career, Sandy, not getting another cloud certification. You know, train your emotional intelligence, train your soft skills. That equates on average to about a $80,000 a year raise per year, every year of someone's life, which is about $2.4 million over the course of a 30-year career. Once you get a second certification, it's not going to touch your salary at all. But even if it did, typically speaking, going from a one certification to another can typically give you about a $10,000 boost to your salary for the first 2 or 3, and after that, it makes no difference. So by doing that, you know, it just doesn't have the impact. It's such a lower value, a lower return on your investment, a lower return on your time. So you can learn what you want. I just recommend you learning the things that are going to give you the best salary, the best career progression, and the best futures. At least that's my recommendation. Okay, Chris, what other questions are here? And actually, does anybody want to come off mute on Zoom and ask any questions before I go to the next question on YouTube? And does anybody on YouTube want to hop over to Zoom? Because you're more than able to. Let me go through these questions. And actually, you know what? I'm going to do this. If any of you have any questions and you are not comfortable answering these questions in public that are related to our training, what we're going to do is I'm going to put our office phone number, and you can call us. We're pretty busy, but we always return phone calls. So I just popped our number inside of the Zoom chat, and I'll actually go post our corporate phone number inside of YouTube as well. Okay, so no instructions. Are these roles mostly remote? Sounds like a person would need to be efficient, be more efficient when working with executives. So that's a great question, no instructions. These are, I don't want to call them remote, but they're remote. So, I mean, as an architect, there might be times where you go to the office to collaborate with the team. As an architect, there will be times where you're going to go to the office to do something called an executive briefing. Here's what an executive briefing is. If you've got a client and it's a big high-profile client, say a big bank, say it's the Secretary of the Navy, somebody or something really important, what you'll do is you'll fly their CEO, their CFO, their CTO, and maybe a VP of IT, and a few of those things to your facility, maybe to the Cisco facility, say in San Jose, or an Amazon facility where Amazon's located, or a Google facility where Google's facility. Every organization does it. They call it an executive briefing. And there'll be times where they'll fly out all the executives to the executive briefing center, and then you'll go present your specialty to the executives in the executive briefing center. So for that, you will go to the office. You will also visit clients on site. But there also is a tremendous amount of work that you can do remote. I haven't gone to an office in 20 years. I've been remote mostly. Having said that, I fly a lot. So I would say we're always in a position to go do these kind of questions, to do these kind of things. And you can work from home. Absolutely. You can be at home, say 60% of the time, 70% of the time, maybe even 80. Right now, about 90. But I would assume when it comes to reality in real life, it's going to be about 80% remote and about 20% travel, because you've got to be in front of the customer somewhere sometimes. Okay, who else has a question?
There's a YouTube question from earlier so from Mr. and Ms. Sutar, companies in India want to hire freshers in cloud as an entry role, yet expect us to have relevant work experience in the cloud. How do we tackle this?
Yeah, you know, India is an interesting market, and we do have students in India, and they do get hired even without experience, but it is a harder market. the India market is also a more technical market than the other markets in the world. So much so that a lot of the Indian companies, what they actually do is they have an incredible number of Indian engineers, and they actually hire a lot of Americans and citizens and people from the UK to actually do the sales, which is, it's kind of interesting. At least when I worked for an Indian company a while back, and I had a great time there. So there is a desire to be a little more technical on the India side. Now, having said that, in India, they still respect the soft skills side. And having better soft skills, better communication skills, better leadership skills will help you long term. So I would definitely say focus on those. Now, how do you get this experience? I've got students that are in my program, and when the students are in our program, they're actually they put down Go Cloud Architects as an experience section, and we give them such extensive labs that it's actually like a job. So for our students, what they're really getting is they're getting not only a training program, they're getting something they can actually list as a job on their resume, so they've got the experience. So if you're with us, you've kind of got that on-paper internship that you can show the employers where you're getting your experience. If you're not with us, I strongly recommend finding some form of an internship where you can get experience. Now, here's the key with an internship. You don't want to do something silly like make a YAML template all day long for a container. You want to do something where you're going to help someone, you're going to give them value, but you're going to learn all at the same time. So, those are the kind of things that I strongly recommend. Get some experience, go volunteer for some projects, do some internship, or take our program where you're going to get basically an internship and you've got a whole job that you can list with a company that you can list with all your experiences. So if you have more questions there, Mr. Sutar, I would love to answer them. Mohammed, as a software engineer dealing with cloud providers to get cloud services, with this course, we will not need cloud providers to deal with, but instead we will be able to build our own cloud. Mohammed, many organizations build their own cloud, OpenStack clouds, Nutanix clouds, and they are great clouds. Now, also, these same organizations not only build their own clouds, but they connect to external clouds. So in our course, you will build your own cloud, and do it, and you'll be in a great shape. And you will be able to do the same coding on your own cloud that you could do on any other cloud, exactly identical, Mohammed, 100% identical. Or you can do it on the AWS cloud or the Azure cloud or the GCP cloud. The way we train people, it wouldn't matter where you work. You can do it on any cloud. Okay, Franklin D. Good morning, Mike. You're into Cisco voice and collaboration. Got a lot of background there. Plus, I spent about a decade working at Cisco, and I was lead architect for one of Cisco's most strategic voice projects. So I know a little bit about voice. Where do I recommend you start and at what level? So, Franklin D., I need you to develop CCNP level routing and switching background. That's where I would start. You may have it, you may not. And by that, I don't know if you've spent most of your time on the call manager side of the unified communication side, building dial plans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or if you are on the networking side like me, where you're building the plumbing, setting up the QoS, the routing, those kind of things. If not, I recommend you getting some experience with that. Now, the folks in Cisco Voice typically have some server background, which is really helpful because these things were running on servers. They used to be Windows 2000. Now they're obviously not, but the point is there's that. So I would say work on the network side. Then Franklin D, I'd also say you got to build that business acumen. So if you were doing voice engineering, then voice engineering, it's all tech. But if you were doing voice architecture work, where you'd start with the CEO and you'd ask them about their business, and then you'd go to the CTO and the CIO, and then you'd go to the voice team, and then you'd start interviewing clients and figure out what works, how their communication works, what could make things better, what makes things worse, how to optimize. Like if you're doing that level of architecture work in voice, Franklin D., then you're already there. If you are doing more with the setup of the voice and the knowledge of the voice, you're going to need that kind of architecture training. Again, you could take a training program like mine, which would be the fastest and cheapest way to do it. Or what you could do is you could learn the data center technology, the stuff that you don't know, learn the network technology, the stuff that you don't know, then buy some training for the communication skills, the presentation skills, because it's got to be at a very different level than what we do in engineering. Engineering has one level of presentations. They talk about the problem, and then in the end they get to the solution. We architects have to present like an executive. We've got to get it out straight, go straight to the solution, and then the substantiating evidence, and then why other things we considered and the rationale why. So, you know, the voice background is a great voice background. I'm actually working with another guy in North Carolina who's really, really smart, really capable from voice, and I know he's going to do really, really well. And I've actually sent him we were exchanging text messages last night. So the point is I think voice is a great background. I have a Cisco voice background. Cisco voice is not the best place to be in right now, which is pretty sad, but Cisco voice is great. And the underlying things that you learn to make that happen are great. Okay, yeah. So if you're doing the QoS and the SIP installation, it looks like you're doing more of the hands-on engineering work. We need to raise it to more the non-hands-on design work. So, for example, the person that designs the voice solution, the person that designs the computer telephony integration, the person that takes the voice and adds it to the contact center, the person that figures out the messaging, the person that figures out the set presence and all those kind of things, what it could ultimately turn out to. Franklin D, that's that architecture level. That's what we do as cloud architects. We could work with you and you would do extremely well, or, you know, now you know what to do. But in either case, you know, people coming from this kind of networking voice background are going to do real well. So I'd love to work with you, or you can work on your own, but in any case, you'll be successful, and I'm sure. So just keep the focus. Javi Hinton. Hi, Mike. I'm new to your videos, and you've more than wowed me. Thank you so much. You're an entry-level IT and have been working on certifications towards the cloud engineer, but did not realize it was a lesser paid role. As someone that enjoys hands-on work, what do you think? Do you think the architect is a good route? So, Javi, I think you've got to do what makes you happy. And here's what I mean. Some people love to be hands-on building. Love it, love it, love it. When I was younger, I got to tell you, Javi, I loved it. In fact, when I did my CCIE, for the first 6 months, I was hands-on. Every time somebody had an outage, I was fixing it. I was in everybody's router and everybody's switch. I was Mr. Techie, and I loved it. I mean, I really loved it. And I got to tell you, I remember it was the end. I had been promoted to the top person on the team. And I remember my manager saying to me, he's like, Mike, he's like, you're the best guy on the team. He's like, we're so lucky to have you. Here's your $500 raise. And, you know, I was grateful for it. But I thought about that. And then I saw people that were being hired that didn't know anything about the technology. They knew just a little bit. And then they were getting paid double than me. And, you know, they went in, they were given their corporate credit cards, they were buying lunches for the customers, and they were talking and schmoozing. And I was like, wait a second, for real? And then ultimately what happened as I moved into the more leadership side, the more business side, the more architecture side, I found that I started getting treated with a lot more respect. I noticed that my salary doubled and I was happier. But people like to be hands-on. People like to build. For people that like to be hands-on and love to build, the cloud engineer is great, and people can earn good money as a cloud engineer. So just because it tops off and tends to be the lowest paid of the bunch doesn't mean you can't still build a great career and be financially successful. So Javi, my recommendation is do what you desire. But Javi, I recommend you becoming more agile in your career. And here's what I mean more agile. The main difference in the perception of the engineer and the architect is very different. And I'm going to tell you, if you learn the same skills that we teach as an engineer, even as an architect, it'll still really boost your engineering capabilities and salaries. So the perception is that the architect is this nice executive that comes in, they're very gentle, they ask some questions, they design something, they give it to you, and then they leave, and it's been a fun, smooth, elegant process. That's the perception of the architect. The incorrect perception of the engineer is, I got this task-oriented person that are going to come in here, they're going to be tech. They're going to upset, they're going to be rude, they're going to offend people, and other things in between. Now, I don't believe this for a second. I know a lot of great engineers, but that's the perception. And because that's the perception of the engineer versus the architect, what you're really looking for is to have that architect brand, that leader, that emotionally intelligence, that executive presence, that's what you want to do. So I'd say by building that and by learning those skills as an engineer or by learning those skills as an architect, you'll always, always, always be in a position where you're going to get hired. So in perfect position. So let me just see if anything popped in. Chris, I'm aware of that meeting. Thank you so much. The next question is from No Instructions. What type of qualities does the fintech industry look for a cloud architect? Degrees or experience? Also, how difficult would it be to land a job in the financial industry after your program? So No Instructions. For the financial industry, we usually have a relatively easy time placing people. The reason is we've got some very strong ties to recruiters in the financial industry firms. So we've got a lot of them. And I focused on it. I was the lead architect for a voice solution for one of the world's largest banks, and I've worked for some of the banks and largest market makers on the NASDAQ. So the answer to that is there's lots of opportunities after our program. But I would say the banking industry is also a little more picky. But here's the thing with the banking industry. If you're better and our students are better, if you're more capable and our students are better, they look past a lot. They want good. And I will tell you that I worked in the banking industry with no experience. I will also tell you that it was such a great experience that, I had 5 months experience, or about 5.5 months when I went to the banking industry. And, if it's 6 o'clock, the company bought us dinner, and at 7 o'clock, we would take the limousine service home. So I got to tell you, working in the banking industry was great. It still is great. What are they looking for in banking? They are looking for people that are calm under pressure, because outages and downtime can cost millions of dollars a minute. So they're looking for people that are very calm and very good under pressure. They are looking for people that are the best in the industry, and they're willing to pay anything for it. There was one year where everybody at Goldman Sachs got a $600,000 bonus, and that was average, including the tech. So you've got tech people that are earning $300,000 a year that got a $600,000 bonus. So the point is lots of great opportunities in finance. Here's the key. You've got to be really good. You've got to communicate well, and you've got to understand the business. So fintech, business, finance, business, understand a financial statement, have the business acumen, have the leadership skills. It's just so critical. They are the most critical skills in the world. And that's why these things matter so much. So yes, these are the skills. And yes, our students after this can work in the fintech industry and do all the time. One of my students recently just got hired by one of the world's largest banks as a cloud architect, and it's his first cloud architect job. So the answer is absolutely.
Piggybacking on that, Mike, Faith has a question on Zoom. What's the starting salary of a solution architect with no experience?
About $120,000 a year is what we're seeing for our students for the people that have absolutely no experience. Now, Faith, we do see people that come in a lot higher if they're really emotionally intelligent and they're really good. But on average, I'd say about 120 to 150 is the first job that somebody's typically going to get. Mr. Businessman, currently you have a Security Plus, an AWS CCP, and a bachelor's degree in business. Working on your CCNA now. You currently work in finance and looking for your first IT job. You want to go to the cloud but focus on networking. Okay, so you could be in our program where we basically have like the cloud architect, the cloud security architect, and the cloud network architect focus as part of our cloud architect program. So, there would be that. But realistically speaking, if you want to focus on cloud networking, I would focus first on learning networking. And what do I mean by that? I would say you've got to learn routing, BGP, interior gateway protocols, and you've got to be really, really good at that stuff. Now, I'm going to tell you that the routing really doesn't come into play until the CCNP level. So you're really going to need CCNP level network knowledge. Must have it. And so I'd say there's that. So once they get that network knowledge, we're going to need that equivalent level cloud knowledge, which again is not just knowing the name of an AWS service and how to configure it. It's much, much, much more related to knowing the stuff and what it is. What is a load balancer? When to use a network load balancer versus an application load balancer? You got to know what to use when. Know why you're using block storage versus object storage. You're using object storage. What do you do with the metadata? How are you going to integrate it? Why can't you put things that change frequently there? You've got to know these things. You can't design systems that you don't know. So the key is, what we're really talking about is knowing the network and then knowing the data center. You know those two things and you will be solid, solid, solid. Learn the network and learn the data center. That's on the tech side. But you've got to know the business piece too. So still, you've got to learn the ROI modeling. You've got to be CXO relevant, meaning you need to know how to communicate differently between a CEO versus a CFO versus a VP of IT, because they need different. You've got to be good on the functional, analytical, as well as intuitive, leadership styles and how to communicate to the leader. Because if you communicate in the wrong language, the person won't even hear you. Then you've got to learn how to do some ROI modeling. You've got to learn how to ask businesses the right questions. You can have an incredible career and definitely will do so, Mr. Businessman. And I recommend it. But I'd say focus on all those skills. Don't focus on sysops. Don't focus on DevOps. Don't focus on coding. Focus on design. We architects or designers learn how to design. Learn how to design and get those business leadership communication skills, and your career will literally be unstoppable. Unstoppable. And I can go for a few more. Yes.
I was going to say, Faith asked a follow-up question, which I answered in the Zoom chat, but I wanted you to answer as well. She asked, when do our classes start for new students?
Faith, I've actually had about a half a dozen people this morning literally sign up already, and they already started the content. And they already started doing work. I've literally been watching the homework assignments come in via Slack as we've been here. Obviously, I can't grade them while we're speaking, so I've seen that. And then the next live in-person class, the people that joined today will actually be joining tomorrow. So the next class is tomorrow. Well, today, people that are signing up, but they'll be in class tomorrow. Love you to join us, Faith. Who else has a question for me on either Zoom and Friday? Is there additional training in the program to pass the CCNP? We provide a tremendous amount of networking training Friday that I would say would get you 2/3 of the way to the CCNP as part of our program. So the answer is we provide a tremendous amount of programming, but our focus is not on getting people certified Friday. Our focus is getting people hired. We get people hired in the end. Other people focus on certifications. Certifications and hiring are not necessarily the same. We do provide the training for the Certified Solution Architect Professional. We do make sure that every student gets CISSP level security training and CCNA hybrid to CCNP level networking training. Every one of our students gets that. So all of our students have that level of capability. Going from that, I would say you probably have to read a Cisco Press book or two in order to pass the exam, but it won't be a big deal because we provide the rest of the training in there. So we basically focus it on generic, but we go heavy into security and moderately heavy into networking. We would go heavier into networking for everybody, but networking, I mean, to become a CCIE, I read 75,000 pages of content, where it's 500 pages of content for the Certified Solution Architect Professional. So I have to balance how much networking we do with regards to cloud, because otherwise it could all be networking and we wouldn't even scratch the surface of the cloud. And I could teach networking honestly for a 1,000-hour networking course, and it barely would scratch the surface. Where with a 500-hour cloud architect program, I mean, my God, you can teach everything and people can become really, really great. But I spent 10,000 hours just working with BGP, literally just BGP tuning for 10,000 hours. That's how complicated that can be. So we have to keep it focused, because I have to make sure that all my cloud architect students get hired, all of our students get hired, and it matters to us or we wouldn't do it. We're cloud hired. That's why we do what we do. So what I can do is I can answer questions for about 10 more minutes now. Now, here's the good news. My team and I, because it's this time of year, and this time of year is when people really focus on how do they build their futures, New Year's resolutions. So we're going to be here, literally speaking, on Tuesday and Wednesday and today, this afternoon, every afternoon, and we're going to just come on so you can ask us any kind of cloud computing career questions you want. I want everybody to get cloud hired. I know what it was like when I went from healthcare to all of a sudden working in tech, and it was like the most amazing thing. I started working in tech. I got paid to do my hobby. I mean, literally, people paid me to play with toys, and they paid me well. It was like the greatest experience in the entire world, and I want you guys all to have that same amazing experience. I can't even begin to tell you how wonderful it was having a 25-year career in tech, and that's why I'm here to do one thing, to give you guys all the skills that are necessary to build the most elite and best tech career in general. I want to save you 10 years of wasted effort so that you can get to the best jobs as fast as possible, not make the same mistakes that we all made. Learn from my mistakes, learn from the successes of my 20 years of coaching. After 20 years of speaking to hiring managers and speaking to recruiters constantly and getting people hired almost every day, we learned something, and I'm trying to pass those gifts to you. Either in my students who get the most access to these gifts, or as much as I can do for free on YouTube. I want to help you guys. So are there any more questions? If not, I will be back this afternoon. Any more questions for me right now on either YouTube or Zoom? Chris, did I miss anything?
Not that I've been able to see since I've been back.
Because we spoke to Milad, we spoke to Sebastian. I see Pierre Lincoln say hello. Hi, Pierre. It's always good to see you. I know we spoke to Sani. Arogamita, do I need a laptop? And you answered that students need some form of a laptop with internet access. Okay. So Yogesh, how can you leverage your non-IT experience? Yogesh, I think we talked about that pretty heavily, where we talked about showing the hiring manager that certain things that you've done in your past. For example, when I practiced medicine, which is basically asking questions, a series of questions, evaluating their systems and making a diagnosis and a treatment plan. It's kind of the exact way you be an architect. And I got to tell you, on my first network engineering job, they're like, then when they asked me, they said, you don't exactly have any experience. How are you going to be functional on this? Well, I said, here's what I do in my job. I start with the client. I ask them what's bothering them. I examine their current systems. I go to my knowledge base. I make a diagnosis and write a prescription. I said, what am I going to do as an engineer? I said, or an architect? I said, I'm going to ask my clients the right questions, right? He says, yeah. Manager says, yes. I said, from the information I'm going to give me, I'm then going to know how to baseline their systems or evaluate their systems, right? Said, yeah. I said, from there, I'm going to make an idea in my head or a hypothesis, and then I'm going to design the WAN or design the LAN or the routing protocols. And the manager said, yeah. I said, see, I've already been working as a network engineer, and I got hired at my first job. So the key is you just got to show it. Make it clear so that there's that. I recommend that. Okay, I know I've got questions. I'm just not sure where they're coming from. So, Sagan, see, you just enrolled now. Can you start your classes anytime next year? Absolutely. It's totally appropriate. That would be totally fine. Jill Shav recommended that we follow cloud service from an architecture perspective. No, I recommend that you learn the technology and not the cloud services. Jill Shaw, if you learn the cloud services, everything becomes challenging. If I teach you what a virtual machine is.
They're asking about the video, the 168 videos that we put in there. Cloud architecture from a cloud services from an architecture perspective, the videos that we have in the program.
What about it?
They're asking if you should watch those before doing the course, and the answer is no. That's supplemental material. Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure I understood the question. Yes. And so no, honestly, we want you to do things in parallel. So the biggest part is first learning what is the technology. Then the first part is building your right plan. And what do I mean the right plan? If we don't build the right plan and we start learning the wrong things, we find ourselves in a position that we don't get hired, or we don't get paid right, or we get hired for the position that's not the one we wanted. So first place to start is actually building the plan. After we build the plan, then it's a matter of filling in the gaps that are on the plan. So my first thing is follow the directions in order. Turn in the first thing, which basically is like your career development plan, your about you, and all those things. That's how we're going to determine how your communication skills are. We're going to be able to make the recommendations and all the things we need to do in order to get you there. So just follow the things one in order, come to class, and you will be great. So next question is, hi, Mike, I have 14 years of software development experience. I want to become a cloud architect. Is it necessary to do CCNA and network certification? Not necessary to do it at all. So here's the thing, BCV, you've got to learn the network and the data center. That's it. Whether you're certified or not, the question is, without a networking certification, if everything you've done is software development, there's nothing related to architecture there. So when I look at a software engineer with 14 years of experience, and I look at a doctor, they're the same. They're coming at it from the same perspective. The software engineer needs to learn the network. They need to learn the data center, 100%. So they're basically, whether you're a doctor, dentist, and nurse coming at it, or a software developer, you're still pretty much starting from ground zero. Now, the software developer has a slightly advantage because they probably know how to navigate their way through a computer. They're typically pretty good at Linux. So there are some advantages. But realistically speaking, what we do in cloud is not code. We don't develop software. And honestly, that's not part of anything that we do as an architect. So if you're going to go into the architecture world, you don't have to learn the CCNA, but you have to learn networking real well. You have to learn the data center real well. You've got to know about servers and virtualization and containers and firewalls and block, object, file storage and the storage protocols. You've got to know about firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, VPN concentrators, Active Directory. You've got to know about how all the cloud services and functions work. So you got to know all that. And on the networking side, excuse me. On the networking side, you must know BGP. You must know OSPF. You must understand all the idiosyncrasies of eBGP and IBGP, and you must know NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, all the NAT gateways, all the other NAT stuff. So you're going to have to know that. You're going to have to know VLANs, rapid VLANs, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, QoS policies. You're going to have to know all of it. So, and the good news is with 14 years experience, you've got tech on your background. So it's not necessary to get as many certifications per se, not by any stretch of the imagination, but you've got to get the knowledge. So however you do it, make sure you've got that knowledge. You may get away with less certifications. You may get away because you've got 14 years tech experience. You might just get away with the certified solution architect professional, but you're also going to have that. And you're going to have to build that business acumen, the communication speech, the executive presence, and all of it. So I hope I answered your question. The next question I see is from Javi. It's just a quick one. I'm looking into enrollment, but you're wondering if the Black Friday discount is available for monthly payments. Of course it is. If you go to our page and where it says $99.99 and you click the $9.99, it will drop down to 3 times $3.50. You click purchase. What'll happen is you'll create a username and a password or what have you. Then the next screen that's going to come up is going to say have a coupon. If you apply that coupon code, it will apply to every payment, every single payment. We give the same coupon whether it's for a single payment or a payment plan. We don't care. All we care is that you guys get cloud hired in the end. It's all about you getting cloud hired. There's no point in doing anything. There's no point in doing any tech training if it doesn't get you cloud hired. There's no point in doing a certification to do a certification, and you got to do it to get cloud hired. Everything we do is about getting you cloud hired or cloud promoted because we want you to have the best career ever. So, are there any other? Thank you so much, Zaki. I really do appreciate that. I've taken a tremendous amount of communication skills training, and I strongly recommend it for others. And that's why I spend so much time teaching it. Okay, I can take one more question now, but like I said before, I will be back at 2 p.m. today. And so let's do this. In case anybody's got any questions about our training, I'm going to put our office phone number in this chat box on YouTube. And that way you can send any questions. We are on WhatsApp as well as regular phone. also going to put our company phone number in Zoom in case anybody has any questions for us. So at this point, there's one more question let me answer, and then after that, we'll be back. So Samir Syed, hi, Mike. Continue to BCV question. You answered it is not necessary to do CC network, but the skills you mentioned about networks, do those skills get covered in the course? So I'm saying absolutely we cover all those networking skills in, of course, because it's impossible to get hired without these networking skills. Now, what I said is, in his case, with 14 years experience, we could probably get away without the networking thing. So the answer is yes, 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 absolutely. But no, we cover between CCNA and CCNP level networking knowledge. And we also cover CISSP level security knowledge in our class, because it's not going to be possible to be hired and work without kind of knowledge. Everybody needs that. This isn't the kind of thing where we can get away with like intro knowledge, like an AWS advanced networking or an AWS advanced security. That's like an intro to a junior level. We have to teach our students the skills that are necessary to get hired. And our students are really capable and really competent and get hired. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to call our office. We're thrilled to speak to you. We're thrilled to do anything that we can to help you build your optimal cloud computing career. I will be back at 2 p.m. should anybody have any questions today. We will also be back on Wednesday this week, and I also believe that we're going to be back tomorrow. Chris from my team can post the actual times for this, but we will be back at 2 p.m. today, and I look forward to speaking to all of you very soon, or any of you that desire. Take care. Thank you, everyone. It was so nice to spend the morning with you. Please leave a like and a comment if you're on YouTube, if you don't mind, or at least subscribe or tell others or share this video with someone who you think would find this video very interesting. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing many of you very soon. For those of you that registered, because I saw a lot of registrations come in this morning, can't wait to see you in class tomorrow. It's going to be really fun. And if any of you registered and you don't make it to class tomorrow, that's okay. We record